In the opening of Manhwa we can see a woman standing and staring from outside of window. She thinks I did everything I could. Then lightning flashes. I endured 3 years in this awful place. I can't take it anymore. She clenched the medicine in her hand and takes all sleeping pills in one go and drink wine instead of water. See, empty the whole bottle. While drinking she thought she wants to end this all. She is tired of all the mockery. I have no attachment to this life, for me to not even have someone to say goodbye to before dying. How did things come to this? She thought about her past. I was born as the sole princess of Le Crown, and lived such a blessed life, more than anyone else. Would things have been different had I not married that man? What does it matter at this point? They're all in the past. While staring her engagement ring, she said farewell to her husband. A flashback of her past appear in front of her eyes. 3 years ago, before her marriage, a business led by the Le Crown royal family ended up failing, and the king passed away before he could resolve the chaos. Every day, the protesters became angrier in front of palace, demanding the royal family should pay with their lives for this catastrophe. Ultimately, they started riots. They surrounded the castle and threatened the royal family. The royal family sat in debt, while royal family was facing crisis. A man named Winter Blooming was in need of a peerage. He is an illegitimate child of Duke Blooming, birthed by an outlander mother. Though he is the eldest son of the Blooming household, there was very little chance that he would inherit the title of Duke, as he is a child of mixed blood. The only thing he had was his talent in making money and amassing wealth. In Le Crown, there are 2 ways to earn nobility: first inheritance and second marriage. So that leaves one way for Winter to earn nobility, and that was to marry a member of the royal family. He gave up what was essentially his entire fortune, and repaid the royal family's massive debt. In return, Princess hand in marriage he will get a noble title. So this is how Princess and Winter got married. I now pronounce you husband and wife. During marriage ceremony, Princess thought highly of her husband Winter Blooming. I didn't know Winter Blooming was such a charming man. Her heart's thump. Who would have thought that I would fall in love at first sight with a man who'd become my husband? I hope he liked me too. Far more mature than I have heard. Princess held Winter hand and said, I realize I am a very fortunate person to have met you. Hearing Princess words, Winters is actually shocked and he can't say word. Their sweet talk got interrupted by Princess brother Ash Lawrence, Violet's older brother. He said, everyone, thank you for attending today's wedding reception. I am sure you all know that Sir Winter Blooming has given 24 million lakhni for this marriage. Princess thought why he needs to keep mentioning that again. The Ash, her older brother, announced thanks to his generosity, most of the royal family's debt has been repaid. However, we don't want to end it there. The royal family would like to apologize for putting the nation in crisis. As such, we will dissolve the royal family and bestow all authority to the parliament. The Lawrence household will also renounce our nobility. In simple words, from now there will be no royal authority. Now kingdom will become democratic and parliament members will run kingdom, which means then the title for which Winter spent half of his wealth now he will not get it, causes only royal family can grant new titles. Ash did this on purpose causes royal family has no money means no power, but Ash wants power anyhow, so he used this tactic so that he can pay off debt and kingdom authority, and he can also make nobles happy, causes nobles never wanted Winter to get title. After hearing this, the banquet filled with noble people chatterings that how the title that was supposed to be bestowed to the princess's husband it has vanished into thin air, I guess. Nobles was enjoying Winter's despair. Someone said, I heard he was an excellent businessman, yet he was scammed into a marriage. Serves him right for trying to get nobility as an outlander. The wine glass Winter was holding shattered and Princess is startled. She called his name Winter, but Winter left the room in anger. Meanwhile, noble people appreciating Ash for his decision. What an excellent decision, for the royal family to willingly surrender their authority. What a great wisdom. Ash is enjoying his attention and shamelessly smiling. Seriously, how can he smile after selling his sister, and then betraying her husband? He not even once thought about how hard life will become of his sister. Princess is standing alone, no one is on her side, even her mother. People who hate Winter start attacking Princess Violet and said she tricked Blooming household for marriage. She should return their money. How can she do this? Seriously, these so-called two-faced nobles harassing Princess to show off their authority. After the Ash declaration, that was only the start of the tragedy that was to come in Princess life. Princess Violet is thinking about her encounter with her husband and in-laws before taking such unthinkable decision. She ran barefoot in the corridor for her husband, and her maids are shouting, Madam Violet, you have to return to your bedroom. Violet garb her husband in hand and beg, Please don't go, please stay for just one more night. Mother-in-law is having a party tonight. Let's go together. She keeps begging, but her husband said I will be back in a week. You can go to the party yourself. Or just say you're sick and skip it. Winter thought that Violet want to avoid parties causes she may thought the party's preparation aren't up to her standards causes this is what Winter's family keep telling him, so he awesome that. But Princess Violet is devastated by his cool reply and said if it were that easy, I wouldn't even be asking you. Winter gave Violet cold shoulder and said, while you continue to waste my time. Do you know how much I could have made? Maid whispering, you should stop, Madam Violet. Winter in cold tone, did you forget how I lost 24 million lachney trying to buy the status that you were just born with? Princess, I know, but... Winter flink his hand from Princess and said, if you know, then choose pay back my money. Or grant me nobility, Princess. If you can't do either, remain quiet. Princess grit her lips and grabbed Winter's hand again, said it's not like being late by one day would make a huge difference, please just once. But Winter gave Princess Violet cold look and went back, and Princess just keep looking at him with teary eyes. A thought occurred to Princess Violet. Would this busy man even come to my funeral? After that, Princess feel pain and called family Dr. Rickman, the blooming household physician. He said, as I've told you many times, there is nothing wrong with your body. Princess reply, I keep telling you that I have terrible pain. Doctor said I understand that you had a very delicate upbringing as a princess, but you can't keep feigning illness like this. Princess made snickers behind her. Princess said, but it's the truth. It hurts so much. I can barely stand. In cold tone, please stop lying and get up. This is becoming a bad habit. If you keep wasting my time like this, I'll have no choice but to tell Madame Catherine. Princess didn't know that he do make prescription of expensive medicine, but instead of giving Princess, he kept all money for himself and gives false report to in-laws and husband that Princess is lying. Maid said, Madam, you need to get ready soon. Princess, that's right. It's not like I have a choice since that's what the doctor said, but I did like to change for peace. Princess cut her hair short. All servants are shocked, and whisper what happened to Madame Violet's hair. She said she needed a change of pace, so she cut her hair. Whisper, it's perfect for us since taking care of long hair is such a hassle. Princess thought, I don't want to go to the party. It's not like there will be a place for me there. I'll just be looked down on, but if I don't go, they won't leave me alone either. Then a voice came, Violet, Princess Mother-in-law. Princess, oh, greetings, Mother-in-law and Sir Diev. Catherine Duke Blooming's wife, Diev heir to the Blooming household. Her mother-in-law said you are a bit late because you're feeling unwell. I was quite worried after hearing that you were feeling ill. What did the doctor say? Princess was about to reply then. Doctor shout from middle of banquet. Madam Violet, you are here. I told you that she was feigning illness. Whisper started in banquet. Did you hear that? Feigning? How deceitful does she have to be? Just because she didn't want to attend her in-law's party. Even her own mother-in-law pick up on Princess and said, she's a princess, of course, even a prick would be intense for her. A guest joined her mother-in-law, Madame Catherine. You are far too lenient on her, didn't she con the Blooming household? Princess eyes filled with terror. Everyone humility Princess Violet for their fun. Causes her husband nerve came to any banquet with her or event, and Violet always wear shabby clothes causes of her in-laws. A once happy princess, it was a fun subject of gossip everywhere. Princess came outside the banquet and pray this awful party end soon. Meanwhile her brother-in-law Winter younger brother came. Violet, there you are. You came alone. Is brother busy as well today? He is having a sinister smile on his face. Then he took his scarf and gave to Violet. It's cold today. They're quite terrible, humiliating and tearing you down like that. They don't even care that you're here by yourself. You should have had a drink with me when I asked, as if you have any remaining dignity left to save. He tried to hug Princess without her consent. Princess shouts, that is out of line. Diev said, you ignorant princess. It would be best if you started making smarter choices. Winter doesn't even come home that often. Princess ran away, and Debbie thought you will regret this, princess. How despicable. Who would believe me that the gentlemanly heir of the Blooming household is, in fact, an ill-mannered man that flirts with his sister-in-law? No, would anyone even listen to me in the first place? I can't take it any longer. I refuse to be their punching bag anymore. Farewell to my happy past and hellish married life and my husband Winter, farewell. Oh, it's not as painful as I thought it would be. My body feels refreshed, as if all the pain and fatigue has been washed out of me. Is this heaven? It's soft and warm. Had I known death would be this sweet, I would have taken my life 3 years ago. How delightful. Then suddenly Princess realized her voice changed. She quickly get up. What the voice and these are not my hand. What going on? She is currently in her husband body and her body is still lying in her. Princess saw her reflection in mirror, 6 feet 3 inch, with broad shoulders, black hair and gray eyes, a wild outlook but still outrageously good looks. No way, I have become winter blooming, I must be dreaming. Then a man barged in room with coffee in his hand. It was Hyle Winter's secretary. He said, that bastard, Raoul, is here. Please get ready now. Why are you just standing around? I told you, we don't have time. You even woke up late, which is very unlike you, President. Wear this and please put on your tie today. It's a formal occasion. Violet, yes, I understand. Hyle, President. Your manner of speech. Why do you sound more refined? Oh, you're practicing your manners, aren't you? You did go overboard yesterday. Violet asked what happened yesterday. Hyle, I am talking about the meeting over the Vitamin coffee beans. Raoul was asking for 30 rands per gram. What are you doing, sir? Why aren't you getting changed? Violet startled and said now. Then she said, which Winter will never say. Hyle, I am a bit embarrassed. Could you step outside for a moment? She thought, even though this is Winter's body, changing in front of another man, I will need your help putting on the tie later. Hyle gets shocked. Goosebumps from Violet words. Hyle said, why are you acting like this first thing in the morning? Is this sort of punishment? Violet said, could you please turn around? Then she dressed up. Hyle, he is helping Violet for tie, and while doing this he said, sheesh, President, just swear at me like usual. You never ask for something like favors. Violet inquired, are we having a meeting right away? Hyle replied, yes, please remember. You cannot get angry no matter how much that bastard irritates you today, and don't throw the table. Violet normally swear and throw tables. He seemed like a cold-hearted man with a frozen heart. I guess he acts differently in front of other people. Though this all must be just my imagination. But that still doesn't mean I can be careless with this negotiation. I can't just take things easy even when I'm dreaming. Violet thought she is still dreaming. Then scene shifts. During meeting the gentleman said, as I have told you yesterday, I will not sell the Vitamin coffee beans anywhere below this price. Violet reply, but we've already signed a contract. If you suddenly raise the price, be difficult for us. But the man said, this much should be nothing for you. Don't spout nonsense. Isn't your hotel chain currently having unprecedented success? Violet in-laws and everyone around her always tell Violet lie that Winter is in blink of bankruptcy. So she thought, a success, could he have recovered a bit of his fortune? No, this is simply my own delusion. I have always felt guilty because he lost most of his fortune by marrying me. That's why I welcomed him with open arms whenever he would return home. The man said, at the current price, I wouldn't even be able to pay the children properly. Violet get shocked and said, children's are working. Man, yes, of course. After hearing child labor, Violet was about to agree the terms and raised price. I understand, then, as you've suggested. Hyle interfere, President, pardon me. It seems our president had a bit too much to drink last night. He whisper in her ears, what are you doing, sir? Are you actually hungover? Violet reply, no. It's just that there are kids working in. Hyle said, it's obvious that he's trying to leverage the fact that you were worked to death when you were young children. You did child labor, so he must using your sympathy for his own need. There's no way that cheapskate is paying the children a fair wage in the first place. Even if you pay him more, all it's going to do is line his wallet. Seriously, sir, this obvious. Violet asked, how would I have reacted normally, if I wasn't hungover, that is? Hyle said, you're really acting weird today. You would have thrown the table at him the second you heard him say 30 rands. I will reschedule your meeting with that bastard. Violet shocked from what Hyle said. She thought I have to throw a fit, and Ater would have. She tried to lift the table and thought, would he have thrown something this heavy? The man in front of her, Winter, will throw the table on him. She stopped and think, no, this isn't how she would solve problems. She said to man, let's restart the negotiations, from the beginning. The man is shocked that why Winter hasn't done anything. What are you talking about? Violet said, let's sort this through conversation. We can calmly sort things out until we come to a resolution we both can agree on. She thought throwing the table and instilling fear is how Winter Blooming would have done it, but the one currently present is Violet Lawrence. I have endured people's ridicule and lived like a ghost. Now that I've sat down here, I need to see this through to the end. She said to Man that I will start the negotiation for start, and I won't stop until either we find common ground, or one of us surrenders. Then scene shifts. In Winter House. Winter is ringing bell. Maid, isn't Madam Violet calling for us? Shouldn't we go check on her? Another maid said nah. She'll probably just whine about being sick again. Just ignore the bells. How annoying. Winter, is this thing broken? Why isn't anyone coming? My head hurts like it was split open. He went to stairs and called Rickman. Good thing you're here. Treat me right now. But Rickman in annoying tone, excuse me, what is it this time? Winter, my head hurts, figure out what's wrong. Rickman, I already told you yesterday that there's nothing wrong. Winter reply, what do you mean, nothing's wrong? My whole body feels like crap. Rickman said, crap. How vulgar. I have so much to do. Yet she's wasting my time as usual. He fake examined Violet's body and said, like I said, you're fine. How long are you planning on pretending to be sick? Winter gets angry and said, what? Rickman tried to fool again and said, I understand that you were a princess, but this is far too excessive. Winter got angry and grabbed Rickman by his shirt in anger. And said, I have to go and negotiate with that damned villain cheapskate, so do a proper diagnosis. Winter opens the door of his safe. The safe was filled with gold and money. He took out money and threw it to the Rickman and said, is that enough? Now, tell me what you should do. The arrogant doctor now gets startled, and said, to treat you, no matter what. Winter in angry tone, that's right, I need to get to the capital as soon as possible, so do whatever it takes. If this body faints on the way, no, my husband will have your head. Winter thought, that, though you're done for as soon as I regain my body. Thank God, finally Winter will fire this useless leech doctor. Servant, are you all right, doctor? Doctor is stunned. He can't believe what is he witnessing. He thought, what's going on? Why would Sir Winter, who values money like his life, give her the code to the safe? Why is Madam Violet acting so high and mighty? Up until a minute ago, she stayed quiet like a mouse despite everything. Then Violet's body start paining again. Winter grab his head in pain. Servant ask, are you all right, madam? Winter said, I am all right, and bring me coffee, a hot, steaming cup. All servants are also get startled, from what sight they are witnessing. Then servant gave him coffee and thought, she's having the same way as Sir Winter would have. Said, how long are you planning on just standing there? Servants ask, what do you mean, madam? Winters barge on them and said, Rickman, find me a cure, and you, Philippe, get me a train ticket to the capital. Servants, understood. We'll get on it right away. When they leave, Winter thought, they are slow, and what's the matter with this body? That aside, I thought she was a refined princess, but she's just like me. I'm now certain that I've switched bodies with Violet. Winter thought that, he is surprised how well he is taking this body and situation. Compared to being captured and forced to work by tiny people. Being experimented on by a witch. This is nothing, especially when there are countless people hold a grudge against me. He thought maybe someone who is holding grudge against him might done this. Winter, while stroking Violet's hair, thought, it took her long enough to cut her hairs. Then he suddenly remembered a flashback of past year winter season, when he was having dinner with his wife. She was very happy. Violet said, I am so happy, Winter, you're staying home for 4 whole days. And we can even have dinner together. Winter replied, I'm going back to the capital soon anyway. But still, then Princess smile and, she start blushing and hesitate, ask, don't you think my hair is long? Winter replied, yes it is. Princess asked, should I cut it? It would be a fresh change. Winter in cold tone. Do whatever you want. Is that something I should be having a say in? He thought that, she's welcome to do whatever she wants. And then Violet face changed causes of his cold behavior. Winter gets up, said, if you have nothing else to say, I'll be on my way. I don't know if she changed her mind, but she didn't cut her hair then, but after that day, she also stopped pestering me with trivial questions. Oh God, someone give this man communication lesson, damn. Servant came, Madam Violet. I've brought you the medicine from Dr. Rickman. Also, The carriage to the train station will arrive around dinner time. Winter took medicine and sends servant back. Then he thought that from his answer about Violet haircut, it seems she isn't pleased by his response. Wonder what the problem was. I really can't understand her. Yes, sir, causes you lack of senses. Scene shifts to Winter office where Princess is sleeping on sofa and Winter assistant came. Good morning, sir. She asked when did she fall asleep. Assistant replied, you can rest a bit longer. You've worked hard for the past 2 nights. I didn't think you'd keep Raoul here until he gave up. What I wanted to know is when did you learn how to smoke a cigar? Seriously, yesterday was amazing. During yesterday meeting even Nobel was surprised that, how does he know proper cigar etiquette despite being of lowly birth? Even Violet said, we can't be smoking cigars without wine. Can we, Hyle, grab some good bottles? About 10 of them. I think we'll be talking for a good while. Princess said to Hyle, I might have gone overboard keeping him here for 47 hours. But Hyle said, what are you talking about? You scored a successful contract, not to mention, we got to see Raoul back out like the whimpering coward he is. Such a refreshing sight to see. That man cures Winter, you monster, finally you have your way. Violet smiled, and blushes, and thought, I did it. I didn't think that royal etiquette would come in handy like this. If this is what it's like to live in my own fantasy, such a life doesn't seem so bad. If this is a dream, I hope I never wake up. Hale informed her that, Winter received a telegram, while you were asleep, from Madame Catherine. Violet asked, from mother? While sipping the coffee Violet disgusted and thought, it's scalding hot and way too sweet. Hale informed about letter context, that Madame Catherine said you should offer Madame Violet a compliment for cutting her hair. Everyone's looking out for her. So why does she not want to get along with the rest of the blooming? In depression tone she said I don't care. Hyle said pardon. Princess thought, Winter has never even once accompanied me to a party, even when he came to family gatherings. He'd be busy talking about work and disregarding me. How would he know anything about the stares and ridicule I've received? Even if he did know, he wouldn't have sided with me anyway. 'Cause he can't get his money back or Nobel title. Everything is simply her fault. He has no interest in me whatsoever, that's why. Thinking all of this, Violet said to Hyle, I don't care what my wife does. Hyle, President. Then suddenly voice came from outside the room. President, are you there? Madame Violet is here. Everyone is stunned, and Hyle asked what? Why is Madame Violet here? Servant from outside reply, I'm not sure. She insists that we let her in. But Winter rushed like he does and servants try to stop him. Madame Go can't go in like this. Violet thought, is this how I wake up from this dream? I don't want to go back. He barged in the room and ordered, everyone get out. Hello, Winter, isn't there something we need to speak about in private? Violet, who is in Winter's body, is shocked. Outside the room of Winter's office, there is chaos among the servants. Causes Princess Violet arrived, without any notice. Philippe, voice, Hyle, there you are. Hyle saw Philippe in distress state. He asked, wait, Philippe. What's wrong? Why are you so out of breath? Philippe asked, did Madame Violet arrive here safely? She ran full force as soon as she got off the carriage. A flashback of when Winter arrived in Violet body. Philippe shouting, Madame Violet, you shouldn't strain yourself in your current condition, Madame Violet. Hyle asked, so you escorted her here? The hall is full of murmur and whispering of servants. Philippe, she just kept insisting that she had to go see Sir Winter. Why is everyone gathered out in the hallway? Where's the madam? Hyle thought, why is Madame Violet suddenly acting like that? What changed her? Inside the room, Winter and Violet are discussing their current condition. Winter, who is in Violet body, asks, so we switched bodies, explain what's going on. Princess, I didn't do anything. Winter, an angry tone, if you didn't do anything, then how did this happen? Princess reply, I am just as confused as you are. Winter saw wine bottle in office, he got mad and asked what are these wine bottle are doing, and this rotten cigar smell, what the hell you did to my body. As soon as Winter touched Princess, they both experienced sudden pain. They both fell on ground. They realize they are now in their own bodies. Winter, I think I know, we went back to our own bodies when our bodies touch. Is that how it works? Princess is disappointed and said, it seems so. Princess thought, I came back to this body. It wasn't a delusion, nor was it a dream. Does this mean I have to keep enduring all those awful gays in this body, just when I had finally braved myself to escape from that hell? Winter voice, Violet. Are you listening? Stop daydreaming, and let's finish talking. Princess thought, there's no point in being disappointed. No one cares about my insignificant emotions. Princess replied to Winter, please continue. I'm listening. Winter asked, what happened? Violet, I'm not sure how this happened either. Winter, what? You don't know about the contract that you made? Princess clenched her hand, and thought. Oh, you meant the contract. She thought their marriage contract. He's talking about money. Even in this situation, I am a fool, expecting to have a normal conversation. She thought their soul exchange. It could be, Winter's ash-gray eyes, are a mark of the Khanits tribe that migrated to LaCrown long ago. I heard that among them, some were skilled in shamanic magic. Violet said, right, aren't you an outlander? Is there anything you know about supernatural things like this? What? Do you think that all outlanders know how to use magic? Winter gets aggrieved, and in angry tone, are you saying that this happened because I am a lowly outlander? Princess is frightened. She said, no, that's not what I mean. Winter said, it's not that uncommon for people to discriminate against us in an elegant manner, and of course, you're cut from the same fabric as the rest of those all-important royals. Violet, as well shivering out for fear, said, that's not I mean. It's just that something like this has never happened before in my family. She thought, how strange, I just wanted to continue talking with him, if only for a bit longer. She said to Winter, you don't seem like you know much about the Khanits tribe either. That's why I brought it up. She thought, why does this always happen every time I try to get closer? That wasn't what. Winter thought, she's acting like I'm chasing her away. Why does she always react like this? Yes, man, you always neglect her, that's why she is like this. Winter grabbed Princess' hand. What are you doing, Winter? He came out from his office. Heil, he finally came out. What did you talk about for so long, President? He and all servants are stunned from the sight they are witnessing. Winter, he is holding Princess in his arms. Winter said, whether I'm a descendant of a shaman or not, don't waste your energy worrying about useless things and get some rest instead. I know since I dragged that body all the way here, that you shouldn't be able to stay standing any longer. Violet replied, it's not that bad, I can stand. Winter said, no you can't. Winter puts Princess on his bed and remove her shoes. Princess, but this is your room, at least allow me to go to a different room. Winter said, this is the best room. So just stay here, I'm going to work. You stay here and rest. By the way, this thing, your body, I thought I was going to die coming here. Turns out your body is the heaviest burden. He thought, even when I was punished as a servant, it wasn't as painful. He said to Princess, how can you live in such body? But Princess said, really, but I feel pretty good today. Did you eat some good medicine earlier? Winter, that's feeling better, you bewilder me. I'll fetch a doctor, so stay here. Winter, call Heil and instruct him. Call the doctor. Also, buy some comfortable women's clothes. We'll head to the company as soon as I finish washing up. Heil? Wow. But what's been going on with you, sir? You keep doing things you'd never do. Wait, you're suddenly back to normal? Princess thought, in the end, we didn't resolve anything, as usual. Scene shifts. Now new doctor is attending Princess Violet. Doctor, your body is in terrible condition. You've been taking medicine for your weak heart, correct? Princess, yes, that's right. Doctor, this older medicine isn't used anymore because it worsens the migraine. I'll prescribe you a new medicine, so please take that instead. Oh my goodness, who in the world uses this medicine anymore? Was it even prescribed by a real doctor? Princess thought, but at least the migraine can be treated. What a relief. Princess gets up from the bed and ready to leave room. But doctor tried to stop her. Madam, where are you going in your current state? Princess, I requested another bedroom. I should move before the owner of this room returns. Doctor said, why does a married couple act like they are strangers? Violet thought, strangers you say, this only happened because of the body switch. I mustn't get used to this sudden kindness because, in the end, nothing will change, or at least that's what I thought. Then scene shifts to next morning. An army of maids are coming in Violet room with ton of dresses and accessories. Violet is stunned. She asks, Why are all these clothes in my room? A voice came. Madam. How was your meal? Now. Let's get ready. Even if we start now, we might only barely make it in time. Lulu the hotel maid. We need to choose an outfit for your lunch date with the president. Grab the rest. All maid are super excited to dress up Princess. Princess is surprised and asks, lunch date with my husband. Princess is surprised after seeing such beautiful dresses. She thought, wow, what a fancy dress. Am I really allowed to wear this? Lulu said, Mr. Hyle went and bought them in a hurry. He said it'd be the first meal that you had shared in a while. Princess replied, I also only just found out that I'm having a meal with him. Princess thought, if I wore such a fancy dress, to be indulging in such luxury after wasting all her husband's money. How shameless can one be? The entire blooming household would be up in arms. Princess thought, let something modest as usual. Maid, that color looks perfect on you. Madam, it looks perfect for this weather. I also like that. Princess. Princess said, no, I was going to pick a different one. Lulu, do you not like that dress? You've been staring at that dress from the start. Princess, have I? Princess thought, actually it's my favorite color. Then she thought, as there's no one here to criticize me, maybe I can, just for today. Princess informed maid Lulu, then I'd like to go with this dress. Lulu, excellent choice madam. Elle will do your hair and makeup. Please have a seat. While brushing Princess' hair, Lulu said, President indeed a lucky man. To have such a kind and beautiful wife. Princess replied, thank you for your kind words. Princess, but I'm a bit worried. How can my husband afford all this? Maid Lulu surprised from Princess' words. What do you mean madam? Princess replied, I heard that after spending 24 million lakhnas to marry me, he almost declared bankruptcy. Lulu, that's so, that's odd. The president buys dresses like these regularly. Princess is surprised from hearing Lulu words regularly. Maid Lulu informed Princess that Hyle is always buying racks of dresses. Princess thought, that's impossible. I've not once received a dress from my husband. Then who did he buy all those presses for? Princess thought maybe Winter have affair, but little did she know that her in-laws are the one who never inform her about dresses sent by Winter. Winter, what's taking her so long? Hyle, there's still 2 minutes left, President. Besides, the clothes just arrived at 10 a.m. Of course, she'd be late. Winter, why do you keep taking Violet's side? Winter, what's the point of taking so long when all she's going to wear is some old-fashioned dress like she usually does? Hyle replied, that's true. Why does the madam always wear simple dresses? While they both were talking, Princess Violet arrived. Winter kept mumbling. It's probably just the precious princess's style. How could people like us possibly understand? Princess arrived. She looked so mesmerizing that Winter stopped talking and kept looking at her. Princess, shall we go? Winter. Winter replied, I was expecting you to dress like you usually would. Princess, why did you assume that? Winter said, because you like old-fashioned dresses. Princess startled from Winter words. She tried to say that is because, but she stopped and thought, there is no point of saying anything, because he would care. I am famishing, let's go. They both went to a fancy restaurant. Violet. Wow, the view is gorgeous. Winter, though we almost ended up seeing the night view from all the quarreling. Violet, that's because you were saying all that unnecessary stuff. A flash before they enter the restaurant on ground floor. Winter, we'll take the elevator. Violet, I can handle that much. My bedroom is also on the 5th floor. Winter, how can you possibly climb 5 floors in your condition? Hyle, immediately install an elevator in the mansion. Hyle, yes, sir. Violet exhaust, I told you that you didn't have to, was walking around in my body that difficult. This means that Winter doesn't have any idea how her wife lives in mansion. Her room is on 5th floor, most for rest and almost in the corner of mansion. Winter, you were right. Violet puzzled, what do you mean? Winter reply, I looked into my ancestry, the Khanits tribe. There are various records of people switching bodies with one another, even though they didn't have shaman powers, but we couldn't find out exactly how it works nor the reason, and also, the contract you negotiated was excellent. Then Winter said, let me give you a reward. Violet, reward, giving your wife a reward. She thought Winter as stiff as ever, what I want to receive from Winter is. Violet replied, Then would you please escort me to your father's birthday party next month? Can you be please my side? Winter as usual in cold tone. He replied, you seem to be severely mistaken. My time is far more valuable than you think. I meant a materialistic reward. Tell me an item that you want. Violet. I see. She thought even though we've been married for 3 years, we're still practically strangers. I'm so sick and tired of this. Violet reply, it's fine. I don't need a reward. I'm just glad everything worked out for you. Then a Winter gets irritated. He said, this again, I despise your attitude. If you want to say something, just say it. Don't be so meek. Winter thought Violet is showing her princess attitude. Princess said, there is something I would like to know. Winter, what is it? Violet, if I had died, would you come to my funeral? Winter, what? What do you mean by that? Violet, it's exactly as I said. Winter, if you die, don't be so childish. Violet reply, why do you think I am being childish? Winter thought, you know nothing about me. He said to Violet, how many times have you been hit in your life? Have you ever been forced to work for anyone? What about been locked up somewhere? Tied up and dragged around, and worst, have you ever starved because you were too poor? Then sarcastically, Winter, as are you actually threatening to kill yourself? Violet reply, I am simply asking, if I had died, would you have finally give me a day of your time? She thought, I know it's a useless question, because you are the man that wouldn't use a single day for me. Oh man, he is literally gatekeeping his wife's trauma. Winter leave table and Violet in anger. Then Hyel came back. President, I am back. Oh, did you already finish your meal? I have the quote for the elevator. President, where are going in the middle of your meal? Sir, why are you leaving Madam behind? Winter left without a word and our meal end up our emotions in mess. Madam Violet, it's almost sunset. You need to return to mansion soon. Violet replies, I am sure you lady have it hard time having to serve me. Maid, that isn't so. Violet, I know it's getting late, I will head back now, have Lulu fetch the carriage. A voice came, oh my goodness Violet. I can't believe this, it's been so long since I have last seen you. Ariella Lawrence, Violet's cousin and a famous actress. Violet, it's been a while Ariel, you have been busy lately, haven't? Ariella said, I am always busy, or not you quit free though, you should visit me in the capital more often. Violet reply, I think I will do that, it feels good to get out of the house. Ariella said, I am so jealous, I would like to marry early like you and spend my days arranging flowers in elegance. Violet said, is that so? Ariella said, oh right, I actually see Sir Winter quite often at Keisel Stadium. You know how I had our leaving from young age, right? We get along pretty well thanks to that. Wait, I forgot you dislike barbaric sports like that. Violet, it's not that I dislike it because it's barbaric. I just do not enjoy them because they are unfamiliar to me. Ariella said, Violet, there you go again, you are always trying too hard to seem like a good person. No wonder why Sir Winter finds you frustrating. Violet, he said I am frustrating. Ariella, you did not know. Violet thought the old me probably would have pushed back, but everything I say is useless. I am just a princess that doesn't know anything. Nor do I know how to empathy with anyone because of my sheltered upbringing. Everything I say is just. No wonder people think I am frustrating. If I told her that my life isn't as elegant as she imagines, would she believe me? She did probably disagree me as a sheltered princess throwing a tantrum just like everyone else has. Scene shifts. Now Princess is in carriage with Lulu maid. Princess said to Lulu, does Ariella frequently stay at Conit's hotel? Lulu reply, yes madam, I have seen her quite frequently at Capital Branch. She says she likes our hotel so much that even when she touring in countryside she always tries to stay at Conit's hotel. Lulu thought, could it be the reason by Madam Violet within aware of the dresses, means maybe winter dresses to Ariella, not Madam Violet. Princess said, it's alright, I was just curious. Lulu said, you did not get to finish your meal earlier, did you madam? I will prepare the best dinner for you then we get back. Violet, it's fine, I do not have much an appetite Lulu, but. Violet thought, he has never been home much, but I trusted that he would at least stay faithful. So much did it never occur to me women. I can no longer care who he see. Now Violet is in her room. This is Lulu maid. Reply is in the scent of coffee magnificent. If you do not have an appetite, would you at least like some dessert? If you would not drink it, please keep it in your hand. It's quite chilly now that's the sun has set. There's no much to living, but as long as your stomach is full, life is quite alright. Even if things seems like doom and gloom, you can find solace just for a cup of tea. Life is funny like that. I genuinely hope you will feel better soon, Madam Violet. It's warm. Violet, I really do feel better. I am sorry, but is it too late to ask you for dinner? As you have said, I think eating something will energize me. Lulu with sparkling eyes. Of course, madam, I will tell them to prepare it. I will have it ready on time. In the meantime, please rest. Madam Violet smiles. The dinner Lulu and Turin the chef prepared was excellent. Lulu and chef, both of them trying to feed Violet with delicious food and try to earn some compliment by competing. Violet feel overwhelmed. Violet thought, to have people care about me is a small satisfaction I haven't felt in a long time. There is not much to living, but as long as your stomach is full, life is quite alright. Violet to Lulu. You were right, Lulu. Lulu, pardon me, did you say something? Madam Violet, it's nothing, thanks for the meal. Well, has my husband returned yet? Lulu, yes, just a moment ago. I thought he is stated hotel headquarter tonight, but he came back. Violet, I have to see him. I no longer want to be a frustrating person. Scene shifts Winter office. He is angry causes of his previous conversation with Princess. He thought, what possible reason is there for you to say like that? You have really lost it. Pathetic. To chastise yourself over something she probably said without a thought. Why do you think I am working so hard to earn money for who? Knock on the door. Winter, are you there? I am sorry for bothering you at such later hour, but there is something I would like to say to you. Winter thought at this time. He opened the door. He asked, what brings you here? Wait, were you not finished early conversation? They both look at each other. Wallet set. We will probably continue to be like this. We would not change ever, and that's why I feel all more certain. Winter. Princess Violet said I wants to divorce him. Then suddenly Winter gets shocked. He thought, my wife was completely different compared to an uncultured fellow like me. The nobleman's way of walking that I practiced for days, the overly complicated and uncomfortable attire. But in comparison, all these noble values were as natural as breathing to my refined wife. Even though she was marrying a lowly outlander out of responsibility as royalty. The princess was always elegant. Violet must have felt pathetic after she was used to paying off the debts of her country through marriage. I thought I had nothing that could satisfy princess, status, lineage, or money. There was only one option for me: to become affluent to a point where we're drowning in wealth. That goal was my drive to start. What could be left at you, to disappear? Then he came back to his sense. Winter didn't answer. He just kept his mouth shut and watched her. Winter, who was thinking about what to say for a long time, finally opened his mouth and said, if you want a divorce, I'll give it to you anytime. Really? But of course, you have to return the money I paid for the marriage. Violet paused at his words. Winter continued with a calm face. Of course, 3 years will bring interest. You'll just have to give me $27 million. I'm going to take out the interest because you have worked hard in the 3 years you've been my wife. And what else should I do? Do you want me to pay for rolling on the bed? As Winter approached, Violet gradually stepped back. Just before her body touched the wall, Winter inadvertently put his hand between Violet's head and the wall to cover the back of her head, thinking he should protect the princess. You want a divorce? How can you ask such a thing from me? Princess startled. She said, why are you so angry? I know you lost a lot by marrying me. But isn't it just a bigger loss to continue a marriage that you don't want? Getting divorced will put me in debt. I know I can't pay you back on my own. I can die at work. But that's in your interest. Winter shouts, you're going to get divorced like that? Why? What the hell is the reason? Why would you go to this length? Violet smiled vaguely without even realizing it. That's what I said. I still don't know why. What the hell are you? Why do you hate me so much? What? Winter couldn't understand why she was saying this. He thought in disbelief, my wife is asking me why I hate her so much. Winter's hands trembled. It seemed like a typhoon was blowing in his body. His whole body was being swept with anger and frustration as if blood were boiling all over his body. She was out of her mind, and so was he. He wanted to hold her. If his thoughts were not dragged in right away and locked up tightly in his mind, they would become a problem for him. But the only thing that could be done was to give a much more difficult answer. I don't hate you. I just don't want to get divorced. No one will help you if I don't want a divorce anyway. You know that much. Princess, I know. Then don't bring that up again. Winter stepped away from her. Then, he took a deep breath, looking into the air for a moment, turned around, and went into the bedroom. At the sound of the door slamming, Violet flinched. She closed her eyes tightly and opened them again. She thought Winter's words, "I don't hate you." Lies. Violet walked to her room sadly speaking to herself. Her conversation with Winter certainly made her understand. As long as the money was intertwined, it was impossible to get a divorce. I hated Ash from my heart, but I needed his help. It was Ash who didn't keep the promise of her husband's money. Now that he has fully paid off his debts and has started gaining public support, he is now almost the only one with the power to help her. I wanted a divorce, so I sent Winter to find a way to confer any title. Violet thought that it would not be very impossible to bend the law because he had supporters. She knew there was no reason for the divorce of the two and she would not seek out Ash if there was no money at stake. A few days later, Violet got on the train leaving the capital. Winter sat opposite her. He seemed determined to pretend he hadn't heard about the divorce. "Winter, that's great. How can you come all the way here being in the same posture all the time?" While he was sarcastic, Violet smiled for the first time in a while. "Princess, how can you change your posture so many times? I thought I was coming here with a child. The chair is uncomfortable." Winter was grumbling sarcastically as if nothing had really happened. He emptied a glass of beer before the train even started. He drank incessantly over the course of 7 hours. Violet, who couldn't endure him doing this, opened her mouth. "Don't you think you are drinking too much?" "Not at all." Winter was sarcastic. "Why? I guess it's so vulgar to drink in the eyes of the princess because she can't stand it?" "My father drank a lot, too. I'm just worried. I'm afraid you won't be able to live long in." "And what? I'm not saying you're a vulgar person." Violet said the word and shut her mouth. She thought Winter would be annoyed, but he looked at Violet with a slightly dazed look. He turned his head toward the window and touched his chin with his hand. Finally, Winter, who fisted his hands in his two pockets, headed to the place where the carriage was waiting. He looked back to see where Violet was because there was no sign of her following him. He saw that Violet was looking at a girl who was standing with a basket of flowers. Violet slowly turned her head toward Winter and opened her mouth. "Will you buy me some flowers? In return for the contract?" Then, Winter replied with intimidation. "Don't. You can buy anything later, just ask for the right one." "I like flowers." "Then you can buy them later, besides the flowers in the house are better than that." "Princess, while we're talking about it, it's more comfortable if you buy it for me." "The flowers in the house are not gifts. I want to get a flower as a gift." "Buy me flowers." Winter had no idea what was different between the two flowers, but he didn't have a reason to refuse anymore and walked to the girl. Winter stayed for a week and returned to the capital. He was still busy at work and had not talked to Violet, but it was the first time he had been in the mansion for so long. Violet couldn't figure out why Winter hated divorce so much. Without the knowledge, I thought about whether this marriage is economically beneficial to him or not, but there is no way to confirm it now. Today, 15 days after he left the mansion, there was a birthday party for the Duke of James Blooming. Winter will be back for his father's birthday party this evening, and Violet was going to talk to him more when he came back. As usual, Violet wore a purplish-black dress for tea time till lunch. When she was ready, the door opened without her permission and Ash Lawrence walked in. Catherine Blooming stood behind him. Violet picked herself up. She felt uneasy about the stiff look on the faces of the two. Then Catherine, who came with him, looked sad. She glanced at Ash and spoke. "Violet. I did my best. It was over when you lied that you were sick without giving it a single thought." Catherine continued in a trembling voice that Violet couldn't stand anymore. "I know you felt like Winter's identity lacking. But didn't you agree to marry? Violet, you're in my family now. No matter how much you are a princess, you shouldn't be so selfish. I know it's because I didn't teach you properly, but I'm really upset." Violet thought her heart was breaking down. She remembered Catherine and her friends who had been insulting her for hours. Princess trembles and thought, "I trusted Ash, thinking that he was the only one who could help me. How could he do that?" Ash opened his mouth. In cold tone he said, "I am really disappointed in you and I didn't know you were so selfish." Ash had a reason to stop the divorce unconditionally. The Blooming couple, Ash Lawrence and Catherine, conspired to take the money that Winter had divided into Violet's property. Fortunately, Winter did not meddle in Violet's property at all. But most of all, he thought that Ash was royal, so he did not know that Ash was helping take Violet's property without leaving any trace at the bank. Violet's divorce soon meant they will lose all the money. Therefore, they had to break Violet's self-esteem and ensure that she stayed married. Ash, divorce? How could you even suggest such a thing? What reason do you have? In cold tone. He thought you want to cut off my precious source of income. I will make you unable to suggest divorce ever again. Princess tremble in fear. Catherine, Violet, I have truly tried my best. I even tried to be understanding of you feigning illness for so long. Violet thought that she never lied to them about her illness. Catherine accused Violet. Even if you used to be the princess, you can't behave so selfishly. You're a member of our family now. Is it because Winter isn't good enough for you? Is it because he doesn't have a title? That's not it either, Violet said. But Catherine kept accusing Violet. I know that it's my fault for not educating him better, but I can't stand this anymore. Violet shouts, I don't care about my husband's status. That's not why I want a divorce. I don't want to stand around at tea time anymore. I don't understand why I am the one that's called the con artist. Brother, you're the one that deceived Winter. Why do I have to endure all of this? Stop throwing this childish tantrum. The annulment of the royal family was a wish of the people. You know that as well. Sir Winter has spoiled you so much that you became even more childish. Violet, don't throw childish tantrum. Violet was startled. She thought that a child tantrum. Ash asked Catherine politely, Mrs. Catherine, I'll permit you to correct this child in any way. Please? Then Catherine nodded and said, Violet, it's a punishment for you. You understand, right? Violet was stunned. What does that mean? Violet was trying to figure out the situation, and two of Catherine's maids grabbed her and pushed her into the closet. The lock was locked with a chain around the door handle. Catherine said in a trembling voice, Do you know how my heart hurts every time you do this to me, my daughter? Reflect on yourself here until dinner. After a while, the only sound she heard the sound of their feet moving away and the door closing. It was quiet everywhere. Violet sat down in a daze. Her mind, which had been fidgeting with her forehead leaning against the wall for a while, came to think about death. Then she remembered the day she wanted to die. On that day, her body changed after she ate all the sleeping pills. Violet, crouched in the closet, slowly opened her eyes. She seemed to have lost consciousness while trying to knock down the door. She pushed the closet door once more and luckily it opened. The sun was setting before she knew it. She had no energy to go out. She could see the rose in the vase in her gaze, which had been leaning against the closet for a while. The flowers given by Winter had withered, but a small new rose had sprouted. She wanted to remember that she had received a gift of flowers every day. The flowers reminded her of him. I don't hate you. At that time, she passed on Winter's words, thinking they were just lies, but now she needed them. Since her body had changed, Winter had become more aware of Violet's weakness than herself. Now Violet wanted to tell him the hurt of her heart. Determined to find him, she walked out with difficulty. Fortunately, Winter was talking to some of the people who came to the party today, bringing them to the couple's mansion to help with the business. He sat with his legs crossed on the sofa. If he had found his wife as soon as he got home, it would have been great if he had gone to greet her. If he had, he would have found her in the closet, and it would have opened his eyes. She would not have felt so sad. While thinking about it, Violet was going to pull his hand one more time. I'm going to ask him to stay with me for today. Violet managed to walk to them with a calm face. She greeted the guests first by gently nodding her head in spite of the heavy grief. You all look familiar. Please be at peace. Everyone rose from their seats to greet her. Violet, who finished her greetings, carefully strode towards Winter. At that time, she passed on Winter's words, but now she needed to talk to him. Winter, talk to me. Then Winter answered in a low volume. We're talking about something important, Violet. It's important for me, too. It's really, really important. Go to the bedroom. I'll be right there. Winter tried to speak softly because of the guests, but he slowly became nervous. However, Violet pulled his hand instead. Listen now, please. I'm coming soon. Winter spoke and slipped his hand out of Violet's. Violet looked at the palm of her hand for a while without putting it down. The first day of the wedding was just like his hand, which took out all the courage in her and escaped. He was always the first. He took courage and wretched Violet's hand. Violet slowly turned around, thinking she might never be able to hold his hand again. She left the room without looking back. He will have to attend the Duke's birthday party, which will continue overnight today. She thought that he would never know why Ash or Catherine would come to the party and yell at her for not coming to the celebration. After hearing more criticism, she felt like she was going to break. My heart and soul have been shattered far too much for me to take any more scorn. She saw a gun hanging in the mansion. She took one of the guns and left the mansion. Scene shifts. Violet arrive at blooming household beach mansion. The dark sunset and the calm sea were beautiful as night approached. An old woman, the villa keeper, was surprised to meet her. "Young ma'am? What are you doing here at this hour?" "I came here to see the sea, so don't worry about it and go back in." "My young lady is here. I'll get the carriage soon." "It's really okay. I'll take a break and leave." After being comforted by Violet, the villa keeper was forced to go back to her room as she had no choice. Violet looked at the sea from her villa quietly. She thought maybe my body would change like last time, but honestly Violet wanted her life to end here. Violet loaded the gun. Then she took it to her neck and pulled the trigger. Winter got up from his seat shortly after Violet bothered him. His wife hated these big events. He was also told by his mother that Violet only tried to escape every time, and several times Violet begged him to take her to the capital. Most of all, the story of divorce was scary. Winter's pace had quickened when he inadvertently saw his hand held by Violet, hoping it wasn't just a divorce story. There was blood on it. "Crazy," he said and thought, was she hurt? Was that why she came to me, because she didn't know what to do? Thinking that way belatedly, his heart felt like it was sinking. He ran to Violet's bedroom. When he arrived at her room, the door was a little open. Winter raised his eyebrows and opened the door, and the room was empty. "Where did she go?" "She said we'd talk about it over." "Where's Violet?" "What? Isn't she in the bedroom?" "I'm asking because she isn't there." As soon as Winter got angry, the servant shook his head and ran away, saying, "I don't know." Violet wasn't just in the bedroom. She was not in the drawing room nor in the garden. Winter started running looking for Violet, feeling a little bit more breathless each moment. She was nowhere in the mansion. He felt like his blood was drying up. Now he was crazy to know what she was going to say earlier. Eventually, Winter went straight to the blooming couple's mansion. He asked Hyle, who was waiting for his guest at Winter's command. "What's the matter, sir?" "Violet, isn't she here?" "What? She is not here?" "Capital. Is there a carriage that went to the capital?" "Not yet." "Just take it easy, sir. How can I calm down when my wife is gone?" It was a time when he screamed. Winter suddenly felt very dizzy, cursed, and stopped moving. Hyle asked with his eyes wide open, "Are you all right?" Winter, who soon became fine, replied in a strangely calm voice, "It's all right. I'll have all the servants come and find where the young lady is." "Ah, come to think of it, she said she was going to the beach house." "Now I remember. Yes, yes? Oh, please, listen to me. I thought you were fainting." Hyle grumbled with relief. Leaving him behind, Winter entered the residence of the Duke and Duchess of Blooming. He had something to say. His steps stopped in front of Ash Lawrence. As there were many things to gain in many ways, Ash, who was quite friendly to Winter, greeted him first. "Long time no see, Winter. I heard you locked my wife in a closet." "With my mother's assistance." Ash's expression hardened a little at his sudden remark. However, he replied with a nonchalant face that he had expected this. "That's a familiar and light punishment for the average aristocrat. It's just because you don't know about it. Aristocrats say so." Ash stopped responding to Winter's answer, which was annoying, but he just let go. Everyone said that the couple resembled each other, but now Winter's eyes and speech were like Violet's. A bit nervous, he poured out his words as if he were making excuses. "Do you know that Violet wants to divorce you? She can't do what she wants, and now she's getting a divorce." Mrs. Catherine even shed tears. "It's our marriage. It's already done this time, so I'll let it go, but if this happens again, I won't stay still." "Are you going to sit back and get divorced? I told you. It's our job. Let us take care of our problems ourselves." He turned around, speaking in a calm voice, not like the usual Winter. "Then at night, by the way, I feel very manly with you next." "What?" Ash said. Ash thought for a moment what he was saying and his face crumbled. Winter was already leaving the banquet hall when Ash understood him. Winter immediately left the estate in a private carriage that he had called for today's guests. While sitting in carriage, Violet thought. Now Violet finally understands how she and her husband switched bodies. Now it happens twice, there is no coincidence, I am sure. Whenever I choose death, no matter the manner of how I end it, I would switch bodies with Winter. I even don't have control over my death. Scenes shifts. While shouting to Hyle that his wife had disappeared, he suddenly felt dizzy, and his vision changed. Why the hell are you doing this again? It was a villa with the ocean's view. Winter, who managed to overcome the pain, got up by saying abusive language. I can't find her because she's in a place like this. It was painful, but he was relieved that he found a place where his wife was. Then, the villa keeper ran to her. Little ma'am, didn't you hear the gunshot? Gunshot? Oh, my God. Why is it here? The villa keeper was frightened and she picked up the gun. It didn't matter to Winter why it was there now. The only thing that mattered to him now was why Violet was here. And what was she going to say to him today? Winter ran out of the villa to return to the mansion. But there was no carriage and only a horse was tied up. Unable to ride a horse at all, he stood, vaguely cursing, and called the villa keeper. Grandmother! Call the carriage now. I am exhausted, can't ride horses. Yes, yes. Little ma'am. Surprised by the roar, the villa keeper ran to call the carriage by telegraph. In the meantime, Winter sat flopping on the sofa in the living room on the first floor. Whether or not Violet knows he doesn't know how to ride a horse or not, she took him far away. My wife seems to have stolen my body, he thought. When Winter was waiting impatiently at the sea villa, Hyle arrived with the carriage. Hyle ran to Winter, who had an atmosphere like he would not be able to calm down unless he killed something right away. My lord, Hyle said. How did you know? It's me, Winter asked. His facial expression and posture were like Winter's, but his appearance was Violet's. Nevertheless, Hyle replied when he was suspicious of how he recognized him. Before, you told me to look into the change of body, and there's only one horse tied up here, but you can't ride. What's the big deal? I always write what you can do and not, and now you want to learn how to ride a horse. If you're athletic, you'll get on board soon. I don't want to learn horseback riding with 7-year-olds, and I don't have time. Winter answered with a scowl. Then they managed to get back to the mansion in a carriage. My wife seems to have run away because she doesn't like this party. Anyway, there was little danger as long as he carried her body. In addition, all he had to do now was fill the seats on behalf of his wife who hated parties for some reason. Hyle informed Winter. I remember, the gatekeeper told me that he saw you left in a hurry. Could that have been? Winter's motto was, there is no loss in any case, so even in this situation, he had to have at least one benefit. She will not be in danger. Winter asks Hyle to call a doctor as soon as they arrive. But Hyle informs Winter, but Winter's routine was not over. The Duke, James Blooming's celebration party was just the beginning. As soon as he entered the mansion, Winter, who wanted to treat by doctor first, he has to go Violet dressing room and get change for banquet. Winter is furious. He said why he have to attend the party. Hyle said, you said that you can't return to your body unless you made skin contact with each other, so you need to fulfill her role until the madam is found. Winter is angry. Winter glanced at the dress as the maids brought it for the party. Winter hates all gloomy-looking dresses. He gets angry and wants to leave. The maid whispers in themselves, what happened to her? Seems like she had enough after the closet incident. Winter stood up from his seat, glancing at the dresses the maid had brought. Then, as he headed to his room, Hyle walked along and asked, what are you doing? I'm going to put on whatever I want. His dressing room after saying it for granted. Then he opened another door in the dressing room. He came out of the room with about 100 dresses that Hyle had bought in between the 3 years of the marriage. The closet was filled with lavish dresses, all servants even. The butler is shocked, and Hale is in distress. I hope Winter pays Hyle pretty well for all anxiety attacks he get while working with Winter. 3 years ago, right after the wedding, Winter was so busy and was having financial difficulty that all meals were solved with sandwiches. Sir, now company financially stable, now you can rest and take vacation. You have been working yourself day and night right after your wedding, servant said. However, thanks to the good image of paying back the country's debt, the hotel has regained stability since last spring. Winter thought, this much wealth should be enough for Violet to never feel lonely. He thought, he never gave Violet proper wedding gifts. He asked Hyle to. Had sent Violet 5 party dresses. Hale thought, Winter could have given those dresses to Madam by himself, when he returned room. Look, even a normal person knew how to make your wife happy except Winter Blooming. But a few days later, except for one of the dress, she had returned all of them to him. The letter from his mother, along with the dresses, said that although Violet was a royal, she did not like such fancy dresses. After a few more such returns, he had piled them all up in his dressing room. Winter, who thought this was his chance, let Hyle hold the dress and opened the safe. The safe was full of various kinds of jewels. When Winter wore a necklace with a large drop of water diamond around his neck and put the bracelet on his hand, Hyle smiled. Then Winter asked, is this his bracelet or necklace? Hyle and all servants are shocked. Hale is worried about future. You said that women don't like small things such as jewelry. Besides, where is there a lady who comes out with wearing all this jewelry? Shut up. My husband bought me so much that I had no choice but to put them on. What are they going to do about it? Winter's usual mouth was the same. Winter, who was looking at the dress, complained that he could not wear it alone. I have no idea how to dress. Can I help you? Wouldn't you get out of here right now? I'm trying not to touch something. Bring the maids. Please don't curse with the appearance of a little lady. It really hurts me 100 times. He was in tears and ran out to call the maids. The maids' eyes were wide open in the dressing room, which glistened even though the sun had set. After Hyle was kicked out, the maids dressed the tiny lady. Winter couldn't take his eyes off the mirror even for a short time. See, I knew it. Winter thought that. He knew such Violet would look great in such extravagant dress. I did it right. Maids compliment him. Madam, you look so beautiful. In the meantime, a maid who was grooming her shortened hair casually said, how does this white dress look so good on you? In the wedding day, the bride. Then the maid next to her freaked out and slapped the talking maid on the arm. The maid, who made a slip of the tongue, hurriedly closed her mouth with her hand. Winter asked, narrowing his brow. What about the wedding? Sorry, I'm sorry, young lady. Violet had never heard a nervous voice before, and the two maidens apologized as their faces turned pale. However, Winter became grimmer and questioned the two. Why can't you talk about the wedding in front of me? You tell me. Winter snapped at the maid, who had been hitting her arm, and stopped her, but she couldn't raise her head and cry. Yeah, on the night of the wedding night. The little young master disappeared without a word. Master was angry, but I felt sorry for the young lady, who couldn't even take off her dress and waited all night worrying. I'm terribly sorry. Winter could not say a thing at her words and remained firm. It was the first time he heard about it. On the wedding day, Winter was so angry that he took a train to the capital. There was a lot of work to be done because he was not given a title. He has to rebuild his wealth to satisfy the princess. Regardless of the first night of the wedding, it was common to have a wedding night together. So if no one had told Violet that he had left, she would have waited all night for him to come to the couple's bedroom. Regardless of what excuse I make, Violet pain would not disappear. Only today did Winter know at least one reason why Violet wanted to divorce. Yes, man, you got one out of hundreds reason to divorce you. Catherine, Violet's late, isn't she? That's true, I knew she was ill, but I didn't expect her to be late for my birthday. Catherine replied, she wondered too. She thought, nowadays Violet have confidence cause of Winter. He seems quite serious, something must happen between two to them. She remember, Ash told Catherine that he had told Winter that he had locked her in a closet. She thought Ash is just, probably been caution. Winter never took care of Violet. A lady whispered beside Catherine, but even so, Duchess, your daughter-in-law might actually be quite delicate. Catherine sighed. Others began to help her, convinced that Violet was the reason why she did not have children. She said they have been married since 3 years. Catherine said, it's Violet who refused Winter and doesn't want child. She didn't stop her, she accused Violet, that, not matter how much Winter loves her cause, he is a concubine son. That seems to greatly displease Violet. Lady Shocking said, oh my goodness, so she's refusing her husband because of his class. How appalling. Everyone start murmuring and banquet. To look down on her husband when she's not even a princess any longer. Just look at how she's not even present at her own father-in-law's birthday party. She doesn't seem like this, but now could she? Every noble who actually despise Winter, try to show their concern and kept taking trash about Princess Violet. Then suddenly a voice came, apologies for coming late. At that time, there was a foreign silence at the entrance of the banquet hall. Violet was walking with a white dress and a large diamond necklace to lighten up the surroundings. Everyone is shocked, after witnessing Violet action. She walked in and greeted the couple. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm particularly concerned about it today. There was a moment of silence, and Catherine said, perplexed. Violet, today's hero is my husband, and it's so. Isn't it something fancy? That's true. My husband bought this much for me to wear it today. Violet spoke and raised her left arm with 3 bracelets. I had no choice but to leave one out because my husband was upset. He wants me dress more extravagant and take care of my appearance more, especially today. Catherine smiled as she decided to step back. Catherine felt threatened by her rude speech and eyes, which she could not have imagined as Violet's. Though Violet words sound like, and made-up stories, was this is really Winter's gifts? Yeah, if Winter asked you to do so, that's no big deal, Catherine said. Winter thought, do he have to congratulate now? He suddenly bowed and said, happy birthday, father. Father-in-law. Hyle behind him, is panicking on Winter improper way to greeting. Violet was evasive enough, then smiled and turned around. It was polite to wait for an answer if you said hello. There must be a reason why Violet just turns around like that. Besides, she showed up dressed like a completely different person. Both in-law thought, does what Ash said is true, does Winter and Violet came closer. There is no doubt that something gave her tremendous amount of confidence. The couple were sure that she had something to believe in, and they fell into deep anxiety. Winter didn't expect me to greet him like a Violet with perfect formality. I rather believed that it was best to finish greetings quickly and run away. Violet got off at the capital, Le Crowned, train station. She was sorry to have kept nagging at Winter about how he moved on the train all the time. It was so hard to come back from the second class with her long legs which were bent. She had to get up several times, too. Sharon and Violet get off from the train together. Sharon happily said, I had so much fun on the way here. It's amazing how you know everything about Violet. Actually, Violet's childhood fantasy of marriage was huge. But rumors circulated that you two had a bad relationship. I was a little worried. Violet asked hesitantly, did she do that? Sharon nodded while Violet was fumbling. You know, the late King Lawrence was busy with policy failures, and the Queen considered only a son. But the fantasy of Violet having her own family was extraordinary. I'm sure no one in the world likes to play house so much like Violet. When she heard what Sharon said, she vaguely remembered that she liked housekeeping. Sharon continued jokingly, I was dissatisfied with my main role as a baby. I wanted you to do it. Or be a doctor. Come to think of it, Sharon's 2-year-old brother and Doss's successor, Farrand Doss, would often play with his younger siblings housekeeping. And Sharon, whose birthday is late, grew much later than Violet and always played the role of a baby. When Violet thought of the memories she missed, she laughed because she was so happy a long time ago. Sharon said with a smile, I'm so relieved that Violet met such a nice person. I am sure she is happy. Then suddenly Violet came back to her sense, her expression changed and became gloomy. Sharon asked, is something wrong? Violet said no. Then a man arrived. He called Sharon's name and informed her that her carriage arrives, and it was ready to take her to her hotel which served. Sharon said that was fast. Violet asks from Sharon, Lady Doss, there is something I'd like to ask you before you go. I heard that the Doss Principality is generous about handing out citizenship. Yes, that's right. It's because they have such a small population. Just by arriving at our principality, we immediately grant people citizenship. Of course, criminals are an exception. Violet replied, thank you for explaining it to me. I'll make sure to tell my wife to contact you. Yes, please do. My brother is also curious about how Violet is doing. I see. Violet nodded her head. Sharon left after getting confirmation again and again. When Sharon left, Violet had a gloomy expression. She thought she is sorry for not telling Sharon the truth and how unhappy she is. Violet thanks. It was fortunate that she was not dead yet. She didn't know that there would be someone who often remembered her. Since I decided to divorce, I had to think about what should happen after the divorce. If I couldn't get a divorce, I was going to run away at night. I will throw away my heart and love. I shall depart without any load on my heart. Death was not allowed to me, so I was going to leave. With a heavy heart on this earth and a light body. My husband won't find me even if I leave. Violet bitterly thought that he would not know that his wife had disappeared for about 3 months anyway. It was around 4 a.m. when Violet arrived at the capital. Most people who arrived at this time waited for the sun to rise, eating coffee with simple snacks at the train station. Violet also decided to spend time at the station because she thought it was rude to visit her mother at dawn. Excuse me, gentlemen. May I check your ID for a moment? Yes, that's all right. May I help you? We usually do random tests at dawn. Oh, I see. Meanwhile in Banquet, Catherine thought, Winter's biological mother left her child in a restaurant for a while when he was 5 years old and never came back. Kingdom was rapidly changing, and the era of solving everything by status alone is over. It took money for the Duke and Duchess of Blooming to continue to serve as the rulers of the Southern Recrowned. However, the only thing the couple could do about money was accounting. They needed family members who knew the flow of money exactly. After the judgment, the two decided to warmly welcome Winter, and the boy was completely fascinated by the stability he first tasted at the age of 12. Since then, the boy has always bought affection with money. His parents sold their affection for money. There has never been a problem with a love deal until this year when Winter turned 27. The Duke and Duchess of Blooming, who had been in such a relationship, were feeling extremely nervous. They were very nervous about Winter setting up a new home and going outside. Ash was against it, but frankly, for them now it wasn't an awfully bad option for their eldest son and wife to get divorced. Worst of all, the relationship between the two became so good that they left the Blooming family. If Violet seduces her husband into paying for his parents' party. Soon after, Winter regretted coming out with a necklace. He twisted his neck and said to Hyle, who came with him, "Can't I take it off in the middle?" "Of course not. I don't think all the diamonds in the banquet hall will be enough. Everyone will know. I think I'm going to break my neck." The shoes were hard to walk in and the dress was uncomfortable, but the necklace was the most painful. It was no ordinary job to bear this weight with his wife's slender neck and shoulders. Now I know for sure why women know what they're up to. Winter shook his shoulders with his hands and turned his head frivolously around. His wife was originally a beauty and appeared wearing brilliant jewelry, so it was natural to draw attention. Winter was annoyed by the men's gaze and said to Hyle, "Just find out who Violet should say hello to. Say goodbye and leave." "How do I know that?" "Women his wife's age, whose mother usually comes to goddess tea parties. You should know their face." "She's never been to a tea party, so how do I know who's coming?" "She has never been there?" "Yes, never." Now that he knew 2 reasons for divorce, it was a night of good results. Winter clicked his tongue, sighed, and covered his face with his hands. Then Hyle said, "Why don't you make eye contact with anyone? If you know them, they'll talk to you first." "That's no big deal." Winter, who found it extremely loathsome to socialize, made eye contact and smiled in search of women who seemed to be her age. However, most of the time, greeting lightly and smiling face to face was over, and some even ignored it as if they had not seen it at all. He couldn't find anyone close to Violet. "It doesn't make sense to not have a close friend. How much time did she spend on my mother's tea party?" Winter said to Hyle in a fit of irritation. "Someone she knows didn't show up. Why don't I just leave?" "Hey, does it make sense that the Warhausens are all here today? Your little lady isn't a ghost." Being treated as an absentee at a party was called as a ghost in the south of LeCrowned. Crossing the street, talking about people who were barely invited to the party and failed to make connections has now become a term for those who are unpopular and ostracized. Winter thought for a moment that the word, ghost, might have bothered her, and said to Hyle, "No one is talking to me." "What? Nobody talks to her?" Only after hearing that, Hyle looked around. An hour has passed since entering this place, and none of the many Blooming family guests here have spoken to Violet first. He thought instead of giving Violet respect, everyone looks down on her. He remembers whenever his wife asked him to be with her at the party, Winter had some regrets that he had put his work before her, treating her like a child. "Because I had never seen my wife at a party, I had no idea about her close relationship. Guests are murmuring in themselves. She doesn't know how to read the room. She can't even do a proper greeting. I'm embarrassed for her. She must have seduced his secretary because her husband wouldn't give her the time of day. Now that I look at it, the guests are all acting weird. Meanwhile, a man came and informed Hyle something urgent. Hyle gets startled. He quickly informs Winter that Madame Violet is in La Crown Welton police station. Winter gets shocked. He turned right away and left the banquet hall. Winter ran out of the party and luckily the last train hadn't left yet. Going straight to the first class, he was exhausted and had no energy to sit down anymore. First class seats could be made into a bed by laying down chairs. Violet maid said, "Madam, I will wake you up when we reach the capital, till then take a rest." Then Hyle spoke. "What do you think happened? Why Madame Violet is at the police station?" However, shortly after, Winter's face turned into a frown. He said with his hands pressing against his waist, and then in a trembling voice, he had severe back pain and his stomach had been hurting to the point of cold sweat. Felt like it's going to snap. Hyle and the maid hurried and get the painkiller. Meanwhile, Winter as usual cursed. "Damn it, can't we call the doctor?" Hyle brought a small bottle of medicine and said he picked Violet usual medicine, and Winter should calm down and take this. Winter again shouts in pain. "How am I supposed to calm down when I feel like I am about to die? And what kind of medicine it is?" "Seriously friends, it's so a funny scene, but isn't he overreacting?" "It's a painkiller," Hyle replied. Winter snitched the medicine envelope when Hyle couldn't answer correctly. On the outside of the bottle, it was written to eat in menstrual cramps, and the expected period was from tomorrow. Winter was annoyed and tried to throw it, but Hyle stopped him. "You have to eat one more," he said. Winter didn't want to take any medicine, but he couldn't stand it because he was in such pain that he wanted to take out the middle part of his body. Eventually, he agreed and took the pill and lay down again. Scene shifts. Finally, they arrived at the capital's train station. Violet, who was waiting at the police station, suddenly heard a voice. "My wife is more trouble than I thought. How many times do you plan for us to meet like this? Now this time you chose the police station of all places." "I didn't know you'd find me so soon. I had a lot of plans," Violet replied. Winter in an annoyed tone, "Is that all you have to say, after causing trouble and ending up in a police station in less than half a day?" Violet flinched and replied, "I didn't make an accident. Earlier at the train station, I came here to find an officer who only picked strangers and checked their identification at dawn. A police officer approached me with an identification check. Is that a common thing? I've never once had to do that before." "We usually do random tests at dawn, for security reasons," officers replied. "Oh, I see. Thank you for your hard work." I gave them Winter ID card, but those policemen had been giving me weird looks since the beginning, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. When they checked the ID card suddenly, they screamed, "Oh my God, Lord Winter Blooming, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you." "I'm so sorry." "Why are you so sorry?" The pale-faced officer ran away before Violet could finish speaking, and a young man passing by when Violet was puzzled said. Then a voice came. "You've been unlucky since dawn." When Violet wondered, the young man shrugged his shoulders. Then he continued and said, "Judging by your gray eyes, you're an outlander, aren't you? My father still gets his ID checked like this. He is also an outlander. Fortunately, I crossed the passing line and got black eyes and hair." Violet's face hardened when she realized the meaning of the word passing line. With his explanation, it was silver hair and gray eyes that represented the Karnak clan, a stranger in the Lakeland. Winter inherited his father's black hair and his mother's gray eyes. My husband had the power to make the policeman run away while turned white when he knew who he was, but he still did not cross the line of acceptance of his discriminatory appearance. Winter in an annoyed tone. "So you came here to find an officer who only picked strangers and checked their ID at dawn?" Violet replied, "I couldn't stand such discrimination." Winter clicked his tongue at her calm answer. He knew she was the right person, but he didn't know that she couldn't stand such injustice, but this topic had nothing to do with her. "But why are you sitting here?" Winter asked. Violet replied, that authorities told her to wait there because they were busy. Winter replied, "And you believe that those people thought that you get tired of waiting and then leave the place?" Winter shouts. Violet, "Wait, there is no need for you to get angry like this." They both touch each other and their bodies immediately return to their original condition. Violet suddenly stumbled in a sharp pain in her back. Winter grabbed her arm and sat down, saying, "I will take care of this, so get some rest, your body isn't in the best condition." Violet picked herself up. "I still have to meet those officers." Winter replied, "I told you there is no need." Violet gets angry and says, "No, I will talk to them." She entered into the room. Then all the officers who recognized her got up. The Capitol Police were a very conservative group, so even if the royal family was disbanded, the majority thought they were working for the royal family. They thought first Sir Winter and now Madame Violet too. They ask, "What's brought you here, princess? I mean Madame Violet." Violet immediately found a police officer who checked her husband's identification card at dawn. "Officer." The officer knew that she had come to look for him because he remembered he checked Winter Blooming's ID card. There were about 10 people in the detention center, only 2 of whom were handcuffed, and the 2 were the only strangers with gray eyes like her husband. Officer, who noticed anger in Violet's eyes, said urgently, "You don't know very well, but strangers are more likely to do dangerous things. Are the handcuffs especially for those who commit more dangerous crimes?" "Well, that's not true, but madam." "So what do you mean I don't know?" when Violet asked. The officer swallowed without realizing it. When he didn't answer, Violet continued, "Are all of their crimes being investigated just the same? If so, then treat them equally, and please be fair." But the police officer still tried to argue, "But madam, they are outlanders." But Violet cut his words and said, "How could you say that, while we are discussing equality? I'm certain you know what honor is, so please act dutifully as a police officer of La Crown." Her voice had a dignity that made him speechless despite her calmness. Officers replied, "We were short-sighted. I'll uncuff them all and treat them equally." When Violet greeted the officers, "Thank you for your understanding of my intentions. I expect you to act accordingly from now on." While saying this, she looks like the goddess of justice, isn't she? Violet was taken by Winter's hand to the Karnak Hotel. Winter forced Violet to lie down on her bed as if he had found a patient who had fled. "It doesn't hurt this much. I am not that ill that I must be placed on bed rest," Violet said to Winter. But Winter disagreed and said she should just listen to him and stop pushing her body unnecessarily and get some rest. Then he asked whether menstruation hurts this much when it hasn't even started, and he couldn't believe still she wanted to speak with police officer in this state. "It seems like you have a fever." Violet replies, "This level of pain is nothing." Winter's face darkened with Violet's answer. Then he muttered with a confused look, then asked, "Speaking of which, do you not have any friends in the South?" Violet is stunned. Then Winter continued, "I was at a party last night and no one was talking to me. How come you don't have a friend when my mother threw so many parties, but no one talked to me?" There was a bigger reason. His absence from any social event for the past 3 years was seen as a strong resentment against his wife, and the nobleman had too much to lose because Winter was friendly to the people who blamed her, though it was not only because the Warhouse turned away Violet, but also because the old Blooming couple explicitly hated her. Then why would nobles will friendly with Violet? Violet replied to Winter that it was nothing, so he didn't have to worry about it. Dude, how dumb he can be. This man clearly notices everyone looking down on her during the party. But Winter asks what she means, and is honest with him. She then replied, "Aren't you busy?" She then continued, he didn't have time to chat with her, and now she wouldn't whine any longer, and she was sorry about everything until now. He should leave her. He said if she insisted he would leave them. Violet thought as if he cared about anything till now. Now that the conversation is almost over, Winter said one last thing. "The next time you see a policeman like that when you're in a different state, kick him. My body can handle that." Violet flinched. She thought, she didn't know how it was going to be resolved, but she didn't think it was a legal method, so she squinted her eyes. Then Winter lifted her chin lightly with his fingertips and said, "I've never seen that look before." Violet puzzled. "What look?" "Well, you look a little angry." "I never knew you could also make such kind of expression," Winter replied. He kept looking into her beautiful blue eyes, but then Winter immediately took his hand off and turned his head on Violet's rounded eyes and slightly opened lips. "Forget it, never mind. I must have gone used to this small body. That now even small things are bothering me." Violet coldly replied, "I am sure you are busy, so you can go. You don't have to chase me out like that. I am already leaving. You should get some rest." Winter left the room. Outside the room, Hyle was already present. He started informing Winter about his hectic schedule. "President, I rescheduled the meeting that was interrupted the other day. We have to hurry as we're quite far from the headquarters. The meeting, we have to go over managing Hyle kept policies because your schedule was disrupted due to the body switch. We're having a sponsorship party in Cantus this year as well." While Hyle kept babbling, Winter thought. The first menstrual cramps he felt were terrible. And he felt so disgusted that he wanted to throw it at a random person and scream. He didn't know how his wife was holding this up. Hyel asks the president, "Are you even listening?" "Oh, I'm so busy. Yet I can't stop thinking about her, Winter." Hyel looked puzzled. Then Winter turned nervously on his way out to his wife's room and said to Hyel that he wanted to make sure that Violet fell asleep. Hyel should go ahead first. Hyel shouted, "Did you not listen to my report? We are on tight time, President." Winter opened the door and found Violet asleep on her medication. Winter sat on his knees beside the bed and stared at her. Violet, she seemed to be sound asleep. Winter followed. "Don't be sick," he said, sweeping her hair behind her small ears with his fingertips. "Don't even think about getting a divorce, just live with me." After he finished speaking, he looked at his wife's face for a while and stood up. He felt itchy for some reason. So he rubbed his neck and grumbled, "Looking at your face, I can't go to work," he thought. The next day, Violet looked pleasantly out the sun-drenched window. Then a voice came. "Did you rest well, Madam Violet?" It was maid Lulu. Violet turned around in excitement after hearing Lulu's voice. Lulu was happy to see Violet again and serve her. She inquired about Violet's well-being because she had heard about Violet's fainting. "You seem now well, madam," Lulu said. "Wow, sometimes a stranger gives you more warmth than our close one. I love the Lulu maid. What about you, my dear viewers?" Violet replied, "Do I look good? Actually, I had a pretty good dream last time. I'm glad you rested well, madam. Do you plan on going to the Felice territory right after breakfast?" Violet replied, "Yes, that's right. Please prepare carriage and I'd like you to send me a message in private, without anyone knowing." Lulu was startled. "Without anyone knowing? What's the matter?" "Well, my friend ran away from home, and she shouldn't be caught by anyone." "Your friend ran away from home? Oh, what a troublemaker. Yes, I will do that too." Violet thanked Lulu and laughed cheerfully. After Sharon's now maid Lulu made our princess happy, she should stay with Lulu. After breakfast, Violet sent the telegram and went straight to her mother. After a 30-minute drive, Ella's residence in the Philippines came out. As Violet got out of the carriage, Mrs. Ella Philippe, Violet's mother and former Queen of Le Crown, came out to meet her with a bright face. "Violet, it has been a long time. Sorry I haven't been able to see you, Mother," Violet said while greeting her mother. Her mother said, "Now you are a blooming household, dear. I understand. Would you like to go in for a cup of tea? I managed to get some of Ash's favorite tea." Violet froze hearing her mother's words. Ella continued in a soft voice, "You're doing fine. So there's nothing to worry about. What should we do with our poor Ash? He can't even freely drink his favorite tea. You have no idea how much he struggles." Violet in a depressing tone, "I see, so Ash has a tough time." "Yes, he is having a tough time deceiving people and plotting against his little sister." She thought, "No, I can't keep her mentioning about Ash." Then she said, "I really wish to see the garden. How about we take a walk? There is something I like to discuss with you." Her mother asks, "What do you want to talk about?" Now the scene shifts to Winter's office. Next is regarding the sponsorship party. This year, it'll be hosted by Cantus once again. "Is this that place that gifted us wine as thanks for the donation?" Winter said. Winter loved this wine, but no one can purchase it because monks don't sell it. They give it as a gift to their believer, and Winter was only interested in wine. "That's right, you were very much enamored by its president," Hyel said. Winter said the fragrance of the wine was exquisite. "I want our soon-to-be-finished hotel to have exclusive rights to that wine. I know, with my etiquette, there won't even be a negotiation. Most of the monks are of royal lineage after all. They do value reputation more than wealth. Well, that'll be quite tricky. I will try to make an appointment with them," Hyel said. Then Winter thought, of etiquette. He got an idea just from the word etiquette. He thought Violet knows how to switch the bodies right. Should I ask her to switch just for a one day? Well, viewers, I think this man really wants to destroy his house with his own hands. The scene shifts to Violet and her mother's garden. "Mother, I had a hard time," Violet said. Her mother asks, "Are you having a problem with Sir Winter?" Violet continued. I don't know what to do this anymore. I don't know when my husband be home once he goes out. And all the southern aristocrats hate me. I'm really tired now. Her mother replied, but you're good on your own, till now. Violet bit her lips and continued with a quiet voice. I also have times when I find it difficult to deal with it, mother. And that's why there's something I'd like to ask for you, mother, if Winter and I get a divorce. Ella sighed as if she couldn't hear. She suddenly shouted, Violet, that isn't the right way. Marriage can be difficult, but divorce is never the answer. That's something you can't blame others when you can just do better. I know you will understand what I am trying to say. You are already doing so well on your own. Seeing her mother come out like this, Violet gets what her mother is actually worried about. Her reaction means if Violet leaves the blooming household, it will have a negative impact on Ash's influence in the kingdom. She thought, she understood, when Violet was 10 years old, her eldest brother passed away. Before that, Ella only knew her son, but after that, she became obsessed with her other children. Violet understood her mother because her older brother's early death was like splitting Ella's world in half. Ella continued as if she was heartbroken. Compared to you, Ash gave up his crown and has nothing left. I am quite worried about him. Violet thought. Sometimes she also wanted to be a poor daughter of her mother. Seriously, what kind of psychopath are these moms, who are obsessed with their sons only? The scene shifts, and Violet returns to the hotel in disheartening condition. Fortunately, there is news waiting to make her feel better. It was a telegraphic call from her childhood friend Sharon. Finally, Violet's mood changed, and asked exciting from Maid. Maid reads the letter and Violet hears and gets even more excited. Sharon was staying at Orgel Garden, south of the capital, where the two often went to play when they were young. Violet left the hotel with Flip. When Violet arrived at the Orgel Garden, Sharon ran excitedly from afar. Violet. Sharon. Violet smiled. How long has it been? Sharon said. Wow, Sharon, you've grown up a lot, Violet replied while hugging. The garden was owned by Sharon's maternal grandmother, Anna Tessie Orgel. She came out and said, You must have been surprised that my granddaughter didn't grow up after a long time behaving the same, ma'am. Violet hesitated and said, Please be less formal with me. Grandma replied, That would be improper, as you are also an adult now, madam. Grandma saw Violet's expression of regret while hearing her answer. Then Grandma continues, But if you insist, I guess I can't help it. Instead, call me Nana as you used to. Violet was relieved at her words and smiled. Yes, I will, Nana. Then all the ladies went inside the garden and sat and chit-chat. For Violet, who likes flowers, sightseeing at the flower garden was the happiest time. Although the garden was colored as the summer began, all the flowers would be gone. Violet knew what kind of flower tree it was without flowers too. Sharon said proudly to Nana, Violet really knows all the flowers. Nana, she knows the weeds, too. That's true, but I don't know why you're bragging, Nana said. I'm bragging about my friend. Is that so? Then she's also your pride, Nana replied. Violet became embarrassed. Please stop that, you are embarrassing me. Then, a maid came running frantically and interrupted their sweet talk. Ma'am, we're in trouble. There's a carriage with flowers for tomorrow's dinner, and I think there's a problem in it, and the flowers are dead while transporting. None of them can be used. Sharon speaks. Then how are we supposed to decorate the banquet then? The roses in the garden are not in season either. Nana said, That's indeed a problem. How can a garden banquet be without flowers? The flowerless dinner in the garden must be disappointing to the guests. Then Violet suggests, Why don't you change the theme of the dinner to a summer garden? There are a lot of shell flowers blooming. It's so cute. I think it would be good to decorate the branches with green ribbons and put bluish grapes or green olives and transparent liquor like white wine to enjoy the summer night atmosphere. As expected of Violet. You have a good sense for these kind of things. Sharon excitedly said it was just a simple suggestion. Violet replied. Nana, who listened to Violet's excitement for a long time, said, Is Lord Winter dead without you for a day? Then Violet smiled and shook her head. Nana got up from her seat. Why don't you spend the night here, Violet, and I will make sure to reward you handsomely if you help us in preparation for the banquet. If you help me. Violet got excited and agreed and said, Please let me help you, and I always wanted to make my own money. Sharon also got excited and said, Grandmother, me too, I ran away from home and I don't have any money. Nana said the more helping hand had the better it is, since we're short on time. Let's begin right away. Violet called Philippe. Philippe, I'm sorry, but could you inform my husband that I'm staying at the Oval Garden tonight? Violet shut her mouth as she was talking. When Winter never came home for 3 years, he never had informed Violet. He was always out of touch, and she always waited vaguely. Violet shook her head. There's a high possibility that he won't come in, so I don't think we need to leave a message. If my husband comes back to the hotel and asks, Lulu will contact me here. Yes, I think so, too. Philippe nodded eagerly. He probably noticed Violet's mind. Violet thought, I wish he would come to know how burdensome it is to endlessly wait. The scene shifts to the Winter Hotel. Hyle said, Wow, when you first asked me to buy the island, I thought you were out of your mind, after losing all your wealth from the marriage. Winter gets angry and asks Hyle why he is bringing this up again. Does he want to get a fire? I'm so excited. Didn't you manage to make it to the largest hotel chain on the continent? Are you returning to the hotel? Usually you staying at the office. Winter replied, My wife must be back at the hotel. Is it because of the divorce request? This isn't that much better since you're coming home at dawn. You should have returned earlier, President, Hyle said while teasing Winter. Winter got angry and said, You keep blabbering with that mouth of yours and see what happens. Hyle's response, You have worked hard, sir, please take a rest. Winter said only he can talk to me like that. The last 3 years have indeed been too much. As he continued to live a poor life of staying up for several days in a row and then sleeping for a solid day, he felt mentally exhausted. He thought, should he ask Violet to have lunch with him tomorrow since she didn't come out of her room before breakfast. The carriage ran along the river and soon arrived at the hotel. Maid Lulu informed Winter that Violet didn't return back. Winter gets shocked. What? She hasn't sent any messages. She must be having a great time with her friend. Maid Lulu replied happily. Winter asks, Are you telling me that Violet spends the night elsewhere without telling anyone? Winter kept banging on Violet's room door. Madam, Violet really hasn't come back. Please stop or the door will break, the servant said. All servants try to stop Winter. Winter shouts in anger. Now listen here. My wife is a woman that can't stand a crowd. Yet you're telling me that not only did she leave without a word, but she's also spending the night outside and she hasn't sent a message. You should have looked for her instead. You know how dangerous it is. All the servants tremble with fear, but Maid Lulu gets angry at Winter's childish behavior, so she shouts, She went to the Ogle Gardens. How could she be in any danger? She isn't a child, President. It was a nice day. Of course, she would go out. Besides, you don't even return home most of the days. Why are you causing such a fuss because Madam Violet hasn't returned home for one night? Finally, someone who actually scolded Winter for his behavior. We love Maid Lulu. There was nothing to argue with what Lulu, Winter thought, who didn't want to lose, was full of swear words up to his neck, but he couldn't say it because Violet liked Lulu so much, otherwise I would have, but then he stopped. Winter said in an annoyed tone, Violet doesn't even like tea parties. What I'm trying to say is that there's no way someone like her would be out partying all night. Pardon me, President. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Madam Violet loves being around people, Maid Lulu replied. Winter then continued, As someone who's been with her for 3 years, I think I'd know better. Anyway, report to me as soon as she's back. Winter sat in a drawing room chair and stared at the door. He thought, Ogle Gardens. I'm glad she hasn't left the capital, but he was still disturbed. Formed Violet words. Better than continuing to live like this. If I had died. Violet words. He thought, I wouldn't be this anxious if she hadn't said something like that. Let's just work. She's probably sleeping over because it became too late to come home. I'm sure she'll be back in the morning. She'll be back any time now. Let's work. As time went by, he thought she would come in the morning, lunch, maybe before dinner. However, when Violet did not come even in the evening, he was afraid that something had happened to her. Winter can't focus on work. It's been a whole day. Why is she still not back? You there, call a carriage and prepare to go out. I need to make sure she's safe with my eye. The scene shifts to garden, at Anna's house. As she was working late at night with Violet, they were making decorations for tomorrow while Sharon was fast asleep. I heard from Sharon the other day. Apparently, there's nothing Sir Winter doesn't know about you, Nana said. Violet bowed her head and thought, it wasn't the real Winter that she was with. Suddenly Nana said, Is life in the South hard? Hearing these words, Violet get freeze. Then Violet replied, It's hard. But I imagine it's not as hard as my husband who lost his wealth marrying me. Maybe I am selfish like Ash said. I just have to endure this. Nana shook her head and in a serious tone she said, I'm sorry to say this about your brother, but Ash is an opportunist. There's no need to take to heart what someone like him told you. Anna shrugged her shoulders as Violet looked surprised. I am at an age where I do fear anything. But I am wary of people like your brother who seek power. I don't want my grandchildren or you to live in such a world. That's sad, but you are welcome to come here whenever you find things difficult. I'm at least capable of taking care of you. Anna's words made Violet's face bloom like a flower in summer. She gave a pleasant smile and said, I will, Nana. Ah, Nana is so amazing. The next evening at the dinner banquet at Ogle Gardens. All the guests finally arrived, and they were very surprised by all the banquet decorations. Oh my God, such a vibrant and green sight. It feels so refreshing to be here. What a splendid party, Madam, Nana proudly replied, to all the guests. This is all thanks to Madam Violet of the Blooming household. This luscious green banquet was her idea. Guests are surprised. Oh my! Did you mean the Blooming Duchy from the south? I see you have quite discerning eyes despite being so young. This atmosphere is unlike anything else. Violet hesitantly replied, thank you, she felt flattered. Then a voice came, she's had an eye for these things since she was a child. Violet was startled and turned around. She found a familiar face. It's been a while, Sir Kenjes. Kenjes is ex-commander of the Royal Bodyguards and current chief of police. I'm happy to meet your acquaintance again, Madam, Sir Kenjes replied. Violet said, I heard you became the chief of police after the royal family was annulled. Sir Kenjes continues. I apologize for not always being capable of protecting you. I heard that you visited the Welton police station recently. He bowed and said, as the police chief, I shall do my best. Nana from behind said, seeing your face assures me. I wondered why you accepted my invitation, so you could see Violet? Nana continued, so you wanted to see the princess much more than your dear old friend, my goodness. That's not it. It's just that as a servant of the public, private occasions like this are. Sir Kenjes replied. All right, I got it. You old man, Nana said. Suddenly in this happy moment, Violet gets lost in her thoughts. While laughing and chatting with people like this, the time I tried to take my own life feels like a long distant past. But sometimes it'll all come rushing back to me in an instant. She suddenly remembers the day she wanted to end her life with a gun. Are you all right, Madam? Sir Kenjes said. Of course, I'm perfectly fine, Violet replies. It's such a wonderful banquet, isn't it? She thought, I want to bury my worries and embrace this warmth instead, even if it's just for a moment. Tick-tock voice came and Violet noticed, it passed 10 meters already. She thought, I've never been out for such a long period of time. Then she shook her head and thought, don't feel guilty, Violet, it's only been a day and a half and he disappeared on our wedding day and only returned months later. Then a familiar voice came, I apologize for intruding without an invitation. Oh look who is it, Winter Blooming, Nana said. Violet was shocked and suddenly turned around and saw Winter. Why, for what he is here, she thought. Winter presented a wine bottle. This is a small gift for my sudden visit, he said to Nana. Nana replied happily, you didn't have to bring such fine wine. Violet asks, what's bring you here, seeing how you're dressed? I'm sure you had business. I didn't think I'd see you here. Winter lied and said, I was in the area, so I stopped by. Violet gets puzzled, all the way here, a place 2 hours away from the hotel. Why, is this somewhere I shouldn't have come? Winter asked. That's not what I want to say, Violet replied. Then Violet lowered her head, clenched her winter shirt and said, does this mean I have to go back now? I wanted to stay a bit longer as there are a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. Winter looked at her and replied, go and talk to them, I will wait for you here. Violet thought, is unlike him, is his business not urgent, then? Then she asked, would you like to come with me? This is our first time at a party together. Winter froze for a second, then he grabbed Violet's hand and escorted her properly and said, as your wish. Scene shifts, now Violet and Winter are in carriage. They are going back to hotel from banquet. Winter said, the wine wasn't that strong, how are you so drunk? Violet is dazed. She said it's strange but I get easily drunk off of red wine. Then she laughed. Then you shouldn't drink red wine anymore, Winter replied. Violet said, but you said it was a good wine. Even Madame Enna was very excited to have it. Violet's husband is always a welcomed guest at Enna's mansion. Violet said, how could I not you drink, when you brought such a fine gift? Why did you drink a whole glass while we were greeting people? Winter asked. Violet replied while giggling, it was so fragrant and delicious. Violet kept giggling. Winter said, you are quite drunk, aren't you? That's why you are giggling so much. Winter was led by Violet for the first time since his marriage and greeted dinner guests, and introducing her husband to people. She said, I always want to introduce you to everyone, this is my husband. It was nice to do it. Winter never imagined that his wife would be so happy because she only had one party with him, he said to Violet. Violet replied, that's because you're always so busy. I thought you might leave at any moment. I'm tired because I couldn't sleep well after preparing for the party yesterday, Violet said. Winter wrapped Violet's head to lean against his shoulder, then he said, how can you go 2 hours like this, just sleep. Violet's eyes were opened again by his actions. As his usual behavior continued, she suddenly woke up. Violet, who was hesitant, reached out carefully and held Winter's hand. Then she looked up and saw Winter. She said, Winter, let's really talk this time. Winter said, I can't divorce you. Violet replies, if we can't get a divorce, then let's talk about a child. She thought, I have decided to run away if I can't leave this world. But that's a final resort. If there is any single chance, then I wish we could stay married. As long as there's hope to keep this relationship, we need to move our main residence to the capital and have a child. I know you're still busy, but I thought it's about time to discuss this. What's your thought, Winter? Winter's hand slipped out before she could finish. He turned his head out of the carriage window as if to end this conversation. He said, I don't have any thought. Violet asked, what do you mean? Winter replied, I mean, I have no desire or thoughts for having a child. She said, is that all? Without even properly talk about it together. She turned to the opposite window without saying a word. I see. Now I know. And there was no more conversation in the carriage. Winter now understands what Violet said was a substitute for divorce. He was heartbroken because he knew, but he couldn't give room for the child. Well, it was impossible for him to have child with Violet because statistically, mixed-race members of the Karnak clan, who are mixed blood, they can conceive child with only opposite gender of the same Karnak clan, but he never explained this to Violet. Man, he is really very bad at communication. Next day, Violet woke up late in the morning. Winter and Violet having breakfast together. Violet asked, what do you want? Winter replied, what do you mean? Violet said, you were waiting for me first thing in the morning when I wake up. What are you doing here? Can't you understand? I'm giving you my time, Winter replied. Violet said, you even asked to have a meal together when I'm sure you have work to do. You must have a reason. Winter said, you've always wanted to talk, so I decided to hear what is it that you have to say so much about. Weren't we already done talking? There's a thing called timing in the world, Violet said. Winter replied, that's precisely why I'm trying my best now. Why are you being so difficult about this? Then the room filled with awkward silence. Winter then asked from Violet, how we are able to switch bodies. Violet replied, I am not sharing it, at least I should have something on my sleeves. Then Violet lowered her head and asked, why you hate the idea of having child so much? Winter said, I will tell you when you no longer want a divorce. I think I need to have a child to stop wanting a divorce, Violet replied. The room filled up with awkward silence and maids who were standing there were nervous. It seems like they are standing on needles. Actually, I've been curious about something. I wanted to ask you. Yeah, we're finally having some conversation now. However, Violet, who said she wanted to know something, remained silent for a long time. Winter said as if he was frustrated. So I'm like that to you, right? You bought it at a high price, but you can't use it. Winter gets shocked hearing Violet's words. He asked, what did you just say? She thought, a mispurchase. When you brought it home, it didn't fit your house, so it looks like an antique in the warehouse which is bought at high price and can thrown away at any time. Then she continued, I know I cost 24 million lakhnas. Even I don't think you can throw it away easily, so I always felt sorry for you. What should I really do when I'm useless and still can't be abandoned? I am just sitting and collecting dust, so what I'm curious about is, when will you abandon me? I hope you find your love, too. Winter then speak, is that all you want to say? Violet reply, I am not down yet. But Winter interrupted and speaks, does princess don't under the meaning of colonialism, this conversation is going nowhere. Have no intention of abandoning you. And you must not leave me. I don't know what the problem is, but if you feel that way, I'll try to find a solution. What will you try to do? Violet asked. When asked by her still incooperative question, Winter said with his hands wrapped around his face to see if he was troubled. Winter then continued, if I knew that, would I have come all the way here? I can only solve it with money. I've been like that all my life. How much money do you have that you always settle everything with money? Violet asked. When she said something she didn't know, Winter lowered his hand, which he had held around his face, and looked at his wife as if he was full of energy. You're not interested in me at all, Winter said. It's not true, Violet replied. Don't be ridiculous. What's left of me if my fortune take away? Winter grumbled and grabbed Violet's hand and dragged her to the window. The high-rise windows clearly showed parts of the royal castle and even the island at the mouth of the Lepel River. Winter grabbed Violet's hand with his big hand, put his finger under her index finger, and drew a horizontal line in the center of the window. From here to over there. That's all mine. Violet paused and turned her head to see Winter. At that moment, the faces of the two were close, and Violet stepped back surprised. Winter grabbed Violet's hand tightly as she tried to get out of his hand. Violet thought Winter's gray eyes staring at her were like a sharp beast. He then continued, you might have misunderstood because I asked you to pay me back, but do you really think I'm doing this to get my money back? Violet replied, you get angry every time you see me. Winter then replied, what kind of fool will stay still if her wife asks for divorce? He managed to let go of Violet's hand from his grasp, then he turned around and left the room. He said, I can't speak as noble as you. If you didn't know anything about me either. Yes. I'll try to understand you if you want, so get used to me too, don't make me crazy, and you should also try to understand me. Then Violet asked, then how did you intend on understanding? Winter turned around, saw Violet and asked, does she has time tomorrow? Violet is surprised cause it's first time Winter asks something about Violet. She said excuse me. Then he replied, let's go on date. Winter sent flowers to the room for 2 days. Violet looked all the flowers sent by Winter and said, Lulu is definitely doing this out of anger, right? I think so, too. Lulu also looked puzzled and replied, it looked like that, but at the same time, it doesn't. Remembering Violet's words to buy flowers, it looks like a flower shop will be set up here. How did he even buy all these in just 2 days? There's enough to make a mountain of bouquets, Violet said. Lulu replied, the president's gift does seem excessive, but you also seem like you're enjoying yourself, madam. Violet said, although it was excessive, it was true that Violet really liked flowers. She was bewildered. Anyway, I heard you're going on a date today. Where are you going? I don't know any place, so I decided to follow where he goes often. Violet thought, it was not a date, but an agreement to find out a little bit about the other person, but there was no need to tell the whole story between the couple. I'll have my breakfast here, Violet said. The flowers smell wonderful. Yes, ma'am. I shall have them prepare something simple, Lulu said. While preparing for table for breakfast, maid Lulu said, that fool Chef Turin, he got too excited over some rare butter. I'm sure he bought it for you as an excuse. There's no doubt about it since the president dislikes butter. Violet is surprised and asked, there are people who don't like butter? Lulu then continued, President doesn't like food with butter because he's a southerner. He prefer oil than butter in his food. President like vegetables much more than meat. It's because the Lord was a very poor person when he was a child, so he didn't have any access to meat. That's why he doesn't like dairy products. Listening to their conversation, Violet thought that as her husband said, she knew nothing about her husband as much as he did not know about her. Scene shifts. Winter took Violet to VIP box at Kyle Stadium. Violet, who saw the players warming up right below, screamed briefly in shock. All the players were undressing their tops. In the summer sun, the upper body muscles flashed like jewels. It was a completely different sport from a sport where Violet enjoys riding a free horse wearing a uniform from head to toe. Violet couldn't say anything and covered her face. Meanwhile, the staff in charge of the box seats brought an ice bucket full of beer bottles. Winter took out a beer bottle. Winter, you can take a look. I won't be jealous of you seeing another man's body. I know you won't. I don't want to see it, Violet said. Winter gave Violet a bottle of beer and asked to drink. Don't be so uptight. Drink this. Violet asked, do you just drink with a bottle? Yes, my princess, you can drink it as it is, Winter replies. She didn't hate this atmosphere as she thought. She was a little shocked when Winter put his 2 feet on the window frame. She thought, where is the man in a prestigious family in a decent suit that I've seen so far? And there's only a man who has no manners left like this. She thought that everything Winter has shown in front of me so far may have been fake. Then a familiar voice came. Oh, MY. You're here today as well, Winter, so you are watching from here. Then she paused and said, Violet, you are here too. Ariella, Violet's cousin. She was startled watching Violet in stadium. Then she continued and asked, "This is unusual. What are you doing here together?" Winter replied, "Well, it's a date." She then continued, "What kind of dating couple is that awkward? Anyway, Violet is a bit stiff and uptight. She was like that when she was young. It's exemplary and interesting for her. Why do not I?" While Ariella was speaking, Winter held Violet's waist and sat her on a grid on his lap. Violet couldn't balance and put her hands on his shoulders, looking at Winter with surprise, and asked, "What are you doing, Winter?" Winter then replied, "It doesn't look like a date. She know how to say that my wife is crazy. It's as much a miracle as your trashy team wins." Ariel paused and saw them, waved her hand and left. When she left, Winter sighed and leaned his head on Violet's shoulder. "I can't be rude to her, do something about her. She is annoying as hell. I can't do anything because she's your cousin." Violet looked surprised at Winter's head leaning on her. Violet asked, "You're really not close to Ellie, are you?" "Do we have to be close?" Winter asked. Violet thought, "I was half convinced that he was having an affair with Ariella, but it was ridiculous. Ariella tried to approach him unilaterally. Come to think of it, my cousin Ariella has always been interested in my things since she was young. Whatever it was, she wanted to have the same thing, and she wanted to have a better one." Then Ariella found one thing that was better than Violet, which was her freedom. No matter how much she liked ballet, Violet could not be a ballerina, and no matter how much she liked flowers, she could not be a gardener. Her position had always been to convey as the only royal daughter of the Lecrown family. Ariella may not know, but Violet was always jealous of her freedom and loveliness. She thought every man would choose free-spirit Ariella, not timid Violet. Violet said, "Now stop acting so brazenly, and let me down." She thought, though I'm embarrassed for showing something so uncouth, it honestly felt quite refreshing. She was about to get off his knees, but Winter grabbed her and didn't let her go. Rather, he wrapped his hands around her smooth legs and pulled her close to him. She looked at Winter as if he were doing something wrong. "Let me get off, stop being rude," she said. Winter replied, "I wonder how many times I'll be told I'm rude today." "I won't do it anymore," Violet said. Then Winter continued and said, "Let's make a bet. What if you do it again?" "Okay, what's your bet?" Violet asked. He replied, 3 more times. If you don't call out my behavior, I'll go to every party and from beginning to end I'll stay only next to you." Violet replied, "Liar." Winter said, "Why would I lie when I am being serious?" "I don't have anything to bet like that," Violet replied. Then Winter said, "You're the only one who knows how to change. Sometimes there's a place where you need your etiquettes." "I see," she replied. She thought, it's surprising that he needs a change of body. Violet still didn't have much lingering feelings about her life, and she thought it would be no problem if she died because she didn't change her body properly, so she nodded without much concern. "Okay, fine, it doesn't sound bad. When do you need?" Winter asked, "Really, was that easy?" Violet said, "Yes, it's easier than you think." "How then?" he asked. Violet said, "If you need it, find out for yourself." Violet said so, and only then did she get away from Winter, who let go. When she sat next to him, Winter said what he really wanted. Then Winter had better idea. He said, "You'll have to kiss me if you lose the bet." Violet said, "It's more useful to change your body when you need it than to kiss me." Winter replied, "You don't even need it that bad. Kiss me once until I'm satisfied. If you're careful, you'll win anyway. Whatever you bet on, it's your advantage." Violet thought about it. "That's true. Let's make a bet." Then, Violet thought she would win anyway, and even if she lost, it was not difficult to face her lips for a while. In the meantime, the game began. From the beginning, the players of the 2 teams, who had taken off their tops, rushed at the same time. It was a competition with only strength. Violet thought this game is far more brutal than she thought, and whole audience are also using such uncouth words. She was about to say their behavior, but then she realized she had made bet with Winter. She was about to lose. At that time, a man with a large round barrel around his neck stopped in front of the window frame where the couple was watching the game. "Lord, who are you betting on?" "Oh, my God," the man who recognized Violet sitting next to Winter. Then he said it loud, "Princess Violet. What are you just standing there for? If you recognized her, you should get on your knees. Who do you think you're in front of?" When Winter spoke with a serious expression, the man quickly knelt down. Surprised, Violet got up in a hurry and grabbed the man's arm and lifted it and said, "That's not necessary. The royal family has been disbanded for 3 years, and even if not, my husband was just teasing you." At Violet's words, The man stood up feeling unfair and thrilled that the princess had held his arm. Then the man took off his hat and held it in his hand, crying at Winter. What a surprise, why are you making fun of me? Winter said, who's to blame for your own stupidity? I'll bet on Dozer. When Winter took out the bills from his wallet, the man turned the large board he was carrying on his back to the front. Then under the player's name, Crack Dozer, the man wrote Winter's name and the amount of money he bet. Winter asked, have you ever been to a horse race? Here, instead of the winning horse, people bet on the athlete that they think will draw the first blood from an opponent. This is all legal. You don't have to needlessly worry. Now then, who do y'all want to bet on, princess? I'm sure whoever is chosen by you will consider it an eternal honor, the man said. Violet is shocked, she said. How can people bet on such a thing? You two are teasing me now, right? When Violet tried to refuse, Winter pointed to the players and said, have you tried horse racing? Yes, 1 or 2 times following my father, she replied. Winter said, just think all the players are horses. They're a person, Violet said. Then Winter continued, just think it's a horse and choose it. Think you have a mare and look carefully like a stallion. Winter, how could you say such an uncouth thing? Violet, who had already said, uncouth, belatedly covered her mouth with her hands. However, one of the corners of Winter's mouth was going up, probably already heard her, and the man who was giggling at the word stallion flinching at the word, uncouth, and stopped laughing. Winter said, I'm sorry I won so easily. Violet replied, but what you just said was too much, please cancel it. He instant reply, okay, I'll take back what I said then, purposely said that so you'd call me ill-mannered, now stop being angry and choose, or are you going to do nothing after coming all the way here? Winter said soothingly and chinned the stadium as if asking her to choose a player. Violet looked calmly and pointed to a player, she choose and said, that player looks like he's in good shape. Santer then, that's a good choice, Violet's name was written on the board. About 20 minutes later, the referee stopped the game when blood splashed from a punch at the stadium. It's Santer, someone shouted, and the audience began shouting Santer's name. It continued while Santer, who punched during the match, was sent off. Winter congratulated Violet for winning betting. The bloody stadium was shocking, but after learning the rules, Violet got interested little by little. She glanced at it in a similar mood like how she kept craving stimulating food, perhaps because she lived in a dark and quiet place like a mole for 3 years. All unfamiliar things were interesting. During the game, many people came to the box seat and greeted the two. Winter often bursted into laughter in the middle of the conversation, and Violet has never seen Winter smile like a boy in the past 3 years. She thought so Winter can smile like that. If I were dead, he'd be much more free. It was strange that Violet's body changed because of Winter's pedigree, but the result was not for him. Scene shifts. It was around 9 o'clock when the two returned to the hotel. Winter bought a bag of his favorite crawler donuts at a nearby night market. You're not eating this either, right? You must be a bit picky, Winter grumbled. Violet replied, it's not that it's not, but he bought fried fish for dinner at the stadium, that's why. Winter said, it's fine, you don't have to think about it. But I'm telling the truth, she replied. Is it your first time seeing a donut that looks like this? Winter asked. Yes, I've never tried it before, she replied. He then continued. It's just like how I dislike the fancy dishes of nobles. I get it, so you don't have to pretend otherwise for me. However, after seeing Winter eat a donut with his mouth wide open, she also opened her mouth wide. Violet mumbled while covering her mouth with her hands and said, oh, my God, it's really delicious. It was quite different from the expression, it's delicious, as if a guest was praising the bad food at dinner, that she said while eating fried fish earlier. Violet said it's wonderful and, why are you laughing? Winter replied, because it's cute. She asked, who? There's only 2 of us here. Do you think I'm cute? Winter said while frowning. The word cute was so unfamiliar for her that Violet could not respond. Oh, I decided to kiss you in exchange. Shall we do it now? Violet got up from her seat. I came here with that in mind. That was why I've been sitting here with you, but, Winter said and kept staring Violet. Then he opened his mouth and said, I'm warning you, a playful kiss like last time is not going to cut it. Violet gets embraced. She then replied, playful, I've never done no such thing. Then he sit back and said, listen here, your family's education is all wrong. You can't take off all your clothes, even in bed. You can't make any sound or even touch. Do you think those rules make any sense? He said while frowning. Then Violet asked, then what kind of kiss do you want? Is it not just touching lips together is called kiss? Winter replied, no, it's not. Only then did Winter get up from his seat when and held Violet's waist with both hands and sat on the table. Violet looked up at Winter with her head up. She said, don't sit on the table. Winter leaned over the table with his hand. As the faces of the two became somewhat closer, Winter stopped and glanced at her eyes. He replied, it's fine while kissing, now you can kiss me. Violet leaned back little by little because she was nervous without realizing it. Then Winter held her waist tightly in one arm and pulled her close. Violet gazed gently at Winter's face, which became too close. Then he said, you asked me what I wanted, right? 3 years of holding back is enough. What is the kiss he wants? As soon as she thought, each other's lips touched. Even the way he kissed seemed to be completely different from her husband. Then maid Lulu knocked the door and said, Madam Violet, I'm here to prepare your bed. Hyel was also there. He said, President, it's time for you to head back to the office. But they got no response. Then Lulu called Violet name again, Madam Violet. Finally a fainted voice came. It was Winter. I will be there just a second. And as she was getting up, Winter hugged her waist and wouldn't let her go. His hair was completely disheveled, and his shirts were unbuttoned in the process of touching each other's. Violet said, what would Lulu think of us? Winter replied, you heard from Hyel that I worked as a servant when I was a kid, right? I'll clean up the bed. Violet said, we can't, what will the two of them think? Lulu and Hyel kept waiting outside the room. Hyel thought, could it be they? Then Winter continued, that the bed's going to be a real mess tomorrow. Violet asked, what does that mean? In the meantime, Violet, who had been agonizing for a while, tried to get out of his arms by understanding what he meant and freaked out. How can you say such things so boldly, Winter? Violet opened the door first and went out. The eyes of Lulu, who was waiting in front, and Hyel, who was standing behind her, trembled wildly. As Winter walked past those two without a word, Hyel was frozen and quickly followed him. My lord, you're going to the office right away, aren't you, in a hurry? Hyel said. Winter replied to Hyel, you want me to rest, then why are you here? Hyel replied, I told you because I thought you wouldn't rest if I didn't say so. I was wrong. Winter replied, fine, prepare to leave now. Lulu, who was rolling her eyes until the two were far away, teased Violet. Madam, your hair is messy. Violet's face turned red with shame. Before leaving, Winter turned back and said, as for you, Violet, let me know if you have any party to attend. I will go with you, and there's no point in betting if you go all 3 times. Violet's eyes sparkled. She replied, really, even though I lost? Yeah, even though you lost, I'll go with broad generosity, Winter replied. Violet's eyes got round and nodded. She said, then, I bet often. Walking to every party to participate every time? Winter asked. Yes, I'd love to, she replied. Winter replied, just head back and take rest. Winter left the room. Maid Lulu again teased Violet. Oh, the fire isn't even on, but you don't know why the room is so hot. Do you want me to sneak both of you to the same room? Violet, whose face turned red with shame, she said, you don't have to do that at all, I'm telling you. Violet shook her head with a face that did not find any of her usual composure. Lulu kept teasing Violet with a cute new reaction. Then Lulu left the room with a pleased expression. Violet thought, it was a day full of unfamiliar things like the match, the bet, and the kiss which Winter desired. Although Winter kept going blizzard things, but I didn't dislike them. Violet, lying on the bed, stroked her lips with her hands. His ways were strange, but she didn't hate it. 4 days later, the couple packed their bags to return to the blooming mansion which was located in the south. Lulu and all servants was regretful and didn't know what to do, and after holding Violet tightly and letting go, she couldn't bear it and held her tightly and let her go again repeatedly. Lulu said, Madam Violet, you have to come back soon. Madam, please make sure you're eating properly. Head chef said. Leaving the capital behind, Violet got on the train. Seeing her expression begin to harden from the moment she left, Winter worriedly asked, you guys aren't saying goodbye forever, you know? Violet replied, but it's true that we won't be seeing them for a while. He continued, you must have taken quite a liking to the hotel staff. If you like them so much, why not bring them to the estate? Violet asked, what does he mean? Winter replied, if you want to stay with them, you can do exactly that, and of course, I'll make sure to compensate them fairly. Violet unintentionally shouts, no, she thought, bring them to the blooming estate, and let them see how awful and pathetic I am there. No, never. She then composed herself and said, no, that's not necessary. Winter saw Violet's expression and asked, you don't look better. Then again, Violet thought, I came to my senses, now I am going that place again. She then speak, you know what I was thinking. Why don't we live in the capital? It's okay even if it's later. Think about it. It's okay to live in the capital too. And if we stay in the capital, I'll change my body whenever you need it. And the company is also in the capital. What do you think? Violet's voice became more and more desperate. She thought she could endure. If there was a hope that she could come to the capital someday, she could hold out there, but she had fears he thought that he would refuse immediately. But Winter replied, okay, let's do it. Violet's eyes widened as Winter responded. She said, really? He replied, there's no reason for me to travel this long distance like you said. It will be hard to move right away. The Blooming has been living in that estate for generations, so let's see. Thank you, she replied. When she answered with a voice that sounded rather subdued because it didn't feel real, Winter asked vaguely. Are you sure you're happy? He inquired. Yes, very happy, she replied. He said, then run around flapping. I can't tell if you're really happy. I'm really happy, Violet responded. Winter replied, I still don't know. I'll have to observe you to distinguish whether it's really good or not. Violet laughed a little aloud this time at his joking answer. Living in Blooming's mansion would be tolerable if there was a guarantee that she could return to the capital. It's not a sure thing, but the fact that it's a possibility made her feel like flying. Violet thought, maybe this life will be worth living if I settle down in the capital, where people I hold dear are, and where there's no one to ostracize me. The train heading to Blooming Estate stopped for a while. There was a problem with the track, so it was going to leave again in about 2 hours. The two went out of the station for a while and went around the area once. Plane continued between the capital and southern regions. Long Leawood, where they got off, was quite populated. In particular, agricultural products from nearby plains flocked here to form a market. So it was a place where a lot of money came and went. Violet looked at the Long Leawood Plains, which was colored with summer green. Just looking at it, time flew by. It was a beautiful place. She said to Winter, I always wanted to say thank you. What? He asked. Long Leawood Plain, you gave it to me as my private property. Don't say useless things, Winter, whose hands were stuck in both pockets, grumbled. After the wedding, I heard from Ash after you left, out of the 24 million Lochna, there was also money borrowed from the bank using that Long Leawood land as collateral, and yet, you provided me with my private property. He replied, what is that? You want me to starve the princess? As Winter acted like a rebellious teenager, Violet narrowed her eyes and spoke very seriously. You also need to accept my gratitude sincerely. Please run around flapping. When Violet returned back what he said, he laughed without realizing it. I'll take it. Before leaving, Violet smiled and looked back at the Long Leawood Plains. Who knew that it was possible for us to share a normal conversation like this? I am truly happy, she thought. Before leaving, Violet smiled and looked back at the Long Leawood Plains. Winter gave her 500 Kadashan-wide Long Leawood Plains as a fortune. Selling the land made 300,000 Lochna, and 200 Lochna used by Violet every month, even though they are still giving tenant farming through brokers. It was money that could never be saved, even if it wasn't enough money to live a simple life. Nevertheless, Violet never thought of selling that land even when she thought of running away. She thought, if we divorce, I have to return it. Winter is a man with a strong sense of responsibility towards his family. I knew this from the beginning, which is why despite how long he had been away from home, Violet loved Winter deeply, even during the long periods when Winter wasn't home. Not because he shared his fortune, but because she thought he was such a responsible man. Winter and Violet has arrived at Blooming Mansion. Winter speaks. I'm going to move out. I'm going to leave. What do you mean moving out? Catherine asked. Winter replied, the capital is too far from the manor. I think it would be better to settle down with my wife over there. Mother. Did Violet say so? Catherine asked in a trembling voice. Winter shook his head. It's because I'm having a hard time. Catherine replied, Winter, I can't even see you often right now, but if you move out, you won't come home forever. Then Winter replied, I'll come when Mother calls me. Is it because I'm bad to you? She replied. Winter flinched. He said, what are you talking about? Mother is always nice to me. She started crying and said, but even so, you still don't see me as like your real mother, do you? Winter looked a little flustered at Catherine's sad voice. James said when he showed signs of being dragged in, think a little more about moving out. Catherine sympathized with what he said. That's right. Think about it a little more, Winter. We're not ready yet. Winter replied, I understand what you two are saying. But we'll have a place in the capital for now. Even my wife can't move around in hotels like me. Catherine's eyes were round at the words. What's wrong with that? It's not even just a regular hotel, it's a great hotel built by my son. Winter replied, I've been wandering all my life, so I'm fine, but my wife is different. It's not your home when you can't touch it. Winter showed signs of getting annoyed. He was a great son, but he didn't always hide his fiery personality from his parents. James nodded. Yeah. It's fine to have a second home to live. Sounds splendid, isn't Catherine? Catherine thought, what's gotten into him? She said it's fine as long he isn't moving out. Winter said, then I think you've given me permission. After Winter finished talking, he went back to the carriage. When their son left, there was a moment of silence between the blooming couple. At the age of 5, Winter was abandoned by his birth mother in front of a restaurant. He ended up being pushed around and forced to work every day. He only resolved himself to escape from that place 7 years later. When he heard two people conversation in a restaurant, did you hear? The Vitellin nobles started purchasing coffee beans. Why are they purchasing coffee beans when they're not even a luxury good? Who knows how nobles think? Maybe those noblemen are scheming something. Once he escaped, Winter headed to the Vitellin mountains, where he spent the little money that he had to buy a cart full of coffee beans. He then crossed the treacherous mountains once again. After all his trials and tribulations, he finally arrived at the blooming estate where he heard that his birth father had lived. While he traversed the mountains, the price of the coffee beans had increased tenfold, and the blooming couple noticed Winter's talent for reading the movement of finances. Winter appeared to have a very keen brain and was cool and ambitious in making money. It was not difficult to find out that the boy would succeed in the future. The two of them welcomed Winter warm-heartedly. The young boy, who was hungry for affection, could not come to his senses due to the warmth he had never experienced in his life. Furthermore, the couple had no better investment because he was a bastard and had no right to inherit the family, as they expected. Winter quickly began to make huge money when the situation stabilized. Even when they ran out of property, even if they starved, it was Winter who prepared the living expenses for other families. He was a man with a strong attachment to his family. However, his attachment towards his wife was not enough, so if he wanted to go to the capital, it became a serious problem for the couple. Catherine shouts, when did he become so obedient to his wife? What if Violet tells him to cut off the money that goes into us? James said, not long ago, the relationship between the two was bad. What the hell is he talking about now? Catherine replied, it might honestly be better for us to let them have the divorce. James said, a divorce now that you mention it. Violet doesn't know yet. Violet doesn't know that she can't have a child with Winter. Mixed blood descendants who only possess a single trait of the Khanits tribe, be it the silver hair or the gray eyes, are only capable of having a child with someone who shares Khanits heritage. It has been a long time since the Khanits tribe have settled in LeCround, hence, despite the prejudice, at least a little bit of their blood runs in most families. But if think one woman who wouldn't have a drop of Khanits blood in her, it would be Violet, the pure-blooded princess of the Lackreland royal family. James said, I am certain they can't bear a child because it's been 3 years since they married. Catherine replied, maybe Winter will never tell Violet about it. That boy would do anything to keep the peace in the family. Then let us use that. If Violet finds out, she'll be furious. Of course, it's a reason for divorce, James answered in a heavy voice. After telling his parents about his plan to move, Winter headed straight to Violet. I don't know how she lives with that stamina anyway. Winter muttered and looked up at his wife for a while without taking his eyes off. Since his wife fell asleep, he wanted to check something in the meantime. Winter asked Hyle to open the door to Violet's dress room. He thought, upon returning here, Violet returned in a dark, plain dress. In the capital city, she enjoyed bright clothes, so he had no idea why she chose dresses that didn't match her skin at all. Winter muttered inside the dressing room, even witches in the West will wear more than this. He wondered why his wife bought multiple sets of this dress. Winter, who came out of her room, said to Hyle, my wife doesn't touch anything unless it's private property. I'd rather buy her some more land. President, something isn't right, Hyle said with a curious look. Is the young lady, aren't you lending her the Long Leawood land for a bargain price? What? Winter asked. Hyle replied, that's true. When the Lord got married, the area of the land written in the premarital contract as the young lady's private property was 5,000 katashans. Isn't it the land where you can get 2,000 lakna per month even if you give tenant farming? no matter how many you get. Is that all? Winter asked. First of all, if you use 2,000 lakna for dignity alone, it's twice as much the lady, and as I said, if you get caught. Hyal's words were not entirely wrong. It didn't make sense to buy only these dresses with the quality land without getting so many households. Since she's a princess, it's cumbersome. So even if she gives the land to her tenants, she gets 2,000 lakna every month. And if she sold the land, she could buy countless dresses and jewelry. When Winter clicked his tongue, Hyal asked. Hyal said, should we find out, how much is the tenant for the land? Winter replied curiously, can you identify the tenant's land ahead of my wife? Hyal said, there's nothing money can't do. Besides, if the broker took it out in the middle of it, we'll have to figure it out anyway. Winter said, clicking his tongue, find out. Yes, Hyal nodded and went out. When Hyal went bank and asked to see Violet's private property documents, the manager said, that's an old saying. Even if you're a married couple these days, you can't easily see each other's property because they're very thorough in distinguishing between what's yours and what's mine. But Hyal bribes the manager and got all documents. Hyal checked the document. Why are the documents divided into 500 Katashans land and 4,500 Katashans land? Manager replied, that's how royalty's private property is marked. Maybe 4,500 Katashans are personal property, and at the same time include royal property. Hyal said, no, it's been a long time since the royal family was disbanded, and all these damn documents are like this? Two recipients of the 4,500 Katashan sharecropping fee were listed as royal property, Violet Blooming Lawrence and Carlson Lowe. The money from the 4,500 Cartesian land going in someone else's pocket? Hyal pushed for a moment and asked, who's Carlson Lowe? How can I know? Then he said, oh, I remember. Isn't it the name of that singer Carlson Lowe? Isn't there a blonde who's a good singer? He's a womanizer. Hyal thought, why does someone like him have lady account access? Then keep it a secret that I was here, Hyal said. Who would I tell this to? Anyone? Manager replied sourly. Hyal headed back, while thinking, most of the earnings from Madame Violet's land is going to an outsider, and it's going to Lacraline's best looking, yet worst womanizer at that. I have to report this right away. Young lady. Violet, who was fast asleep, opened her eyes to the voice of a maid who woke her up. The old master and his wife asked you to have lunch with them today. Maid inform her. Today? Violet asked. Yes, they told me to come by noon. Maid reply. Violet lifted herself up. There are about 4 hours left until noon, but Violet spent a long time wanting to be less flawed. She thought as soon as she came to Blooming's mansion, she felt sick, and the thought that maybe it's just faking illness made her laugh. At the hotel, Lulu did everything for her even if she didn't want anything. But she had to stay alert here. Then Flip came just in time. You've been wearing shoes all the way to the mansion, so I was wondering if you were tired. Oh, then please, Violet replied. Flip took off Violet's slippers very carefully and slowly poured her favorite temperature of water on her feet. He relieved Violet of her fatigue throughout her time in the capital, so Violet got used to it. Then, the door burst open. Winter said, how long on earth are you going to sleep? Winter stopped talking as he opened the door. What's going on? He narrowed his forehead and alternated between the two. As Flip bowed and tried to massage Violet's feet again, Winter said, get out. Flip replied, yes, but not yet. Leave it and leave. Winter knew that if he made a mistake while changing body, he made a very big one. He gave away for another man to touch his wife's toes, that too by himself. Violet said goodbye to Flip, who was getting up on the way. Thank you. Flip bowed and left the bedroom. Violet said, I thought you had already gone to the capital. I'm glad I didn't go, he replied. Then he said, I'll do it. Violet asked, what? Since I kicked Flip out and I picked up the perfumed oil, what else would I do? Well, as Violet still didn't have a clue, Winter said as if he was embarrassed, I'll massage your feet. Violet asked, who? Me. Winter finally couldn't stand the frustration and shouted. Violet paused and then said, you're testing an essential oil product. Are you expanding your business into producing essential oils as well? Winter freezed from Violet's assumption. Then he thought, people only see me as a business tycoon. Huh? He said, think whatever you want. He kept pouring oil. Then Violet stopped him, said, Philippe didn't pour that much. Then he replied, I have my own technique. I might look like this, but I've done every job imaginable. Winter had a temper and grabbed Violet's feet, which were dripping with oil, with both hands, and Violet trembled when he pressed his thumb on the back of her foot and rubbed it. She didn't understand what he was doing, but it hurt more than anything else. Flip carefully massages her feet for fear of a very slight impact on her feet. Winter asked, "Does it hurt?" Violet nodded a little, and Winter said, "Then you need to say it." Violet replied, "It's hard to say that to someone who works so hard." It's not that it's not, but it didn't seem as simple to massage women's feet with his big build. He, who overdid anything, poured almost a whole bottle of oil, causing the smell of jasmine to vibrate throughout the room. Violet said. Winter, who somehow finished massaging, brought slippers and put them on Violet. As she stood up from her seat, her fluffy feet were slippery and her slippers immediately came off. No matter how calm Violet was, she muttered to herself in a small voice that sounded a little bit upset. "Why did you ask Flip to leave?" There was nothing to say. Winter picked up the slippers and knelt on the floor, and he looked up and saw Violet. She was looking down at him with slightly more emotional eyes than usual. Winter suddenly recalled the eyes of the nobles he hated the most in the world when he saw his wife looking down at him. But Violet's eyes were more intense than anything he hated. From head to toe, it was an elegant and perfect look that seemed to dominate from the moment she was born. Because of that look, he thought he might have wanted Violet to collapse and fall into his arms. "Just don't do anything. Just be docile. Just live helplessly in the kingdom I created." He unknowingly thought so. Are there feelings more intense than hatred? What the hell is this feeling? Is it a greater hatred? Violet opened her mouth first. "So what brings you here?" Winter informed her, "I told my parents about moving out yesterday, but my parents didn't seem to like it. But as you said, it's true that it's hard to get in and out, so I said I'd get a place in the capital. I'll find a house in the capital soon, and when I have to stay in the capital for months, you can go and stay there with me. I'll think about moving out completely afterward." Violet, who had darkened her eyes because she thought it meant she couldn't move out, belatedly understood what he meant and asked. "Really?" "Yes, you choose the house. I'll only sleep anyway. It's okay to stay at the hotel. Don't be ridiculous. The capital city is a place where parties are much more frequent than here. It's hard to hold on without being invited and hosted like you." She didn't care about the hotel or the house. Either way was good. Violet, who expressed joy with a faint smile, soon recalled Winter's words to express joy more clearly. However, it was unimaginable to jump around as he said. Violet took a step toward Winter, then she leaned her head in his arms in a very awkward position. "Thank you," Violet said. "What are you doing?" Winter asked. Then Violet replied, "You told me that you didn't know if I was really happy." "So?" Winter asked. Violet said, "It's an expression. If you don't like it, I won't do it from now on." Winter snatched her waist when Violet pressed down on the embarrassment and spoke calmly. Then Violet looked up at him with a rather rigid look and asked, "Are you angry?" He replied, "I'm not this calm when I'm angry." Violet was quieter, but when Winter just looked at her, she finally spoke again. "We were invited to lunch. We'll be late." "You can be late," Winter replied. Then she replied, "A gentleman is never late for an appointment." "Where the hell am I a gentleman?" he asked. "Why not? You're the eldest son of the Blooming family," she said. "You can only say that because you don't really know how nobles are. Every time I said that, do you know how they respond whenever I introduce myself as the eldest, rather than a gentleman? They look at me as if I belong in the slums instead." "That's not true," Violet said. "It's because you can't see that look in their eyes. I saw it when we changed bodies. It's really not like that. They were not underestimating you. They're afraid. They're trying to press it down because they're afraid. They're afraid of your talents and are trying to win against you with their peerage. You don't have to act prideful. You're already a noble with enough power for everyone to fear." Winter looked at Violet and smiled and said, "You are really naive, princess. Speaking of which, last time you said you'd change your body with mine. Right, there's a day I want you to change it soon, the first Sunday of September. There was a party to sponsor Cantus Monastery. I'd like to have that wine exclusively in the hotel, but they are quite high prideful. I need to show royalty." Violet nodded and jokingly said as if she knew what she meant, "She speak, so you need their wine. I understand. Consider this my thanks for relocating us to the capital. It's full of people who make easy things difficult." Winter burst into laughter at her words without realizing it. Violet quietly laughed along, thinking that the moment Winter smiled was unrealistic. Winter said, "Good. Then get ready." After Violet finished talking, she was lost in thought for a moment. With this trip to the capital, she thought that her husband's words that he didn't hate her might not have been a lie. After accepting her request to move out, she was a little excited about her husband. She had an expectation that maybe if her husband went to the tea party in her body, he may recognize her loneliness. Maybe, if only her husband understand her heart, then she'll be so afraid of death. Violet thought that if Winter understand, then we would never switch bodies. Scene shifts. Winter and Violet are with blooming couple. The couple's mind was complicated. Catherine spoke in a soft voice. There's no place like this in the future if you move out. Then James said soothingly, it's not like he's moving out right away. Don't be so sad, Catherine. I know that, but, Catherine wrapped her cheek in one hand with an embarrassing look, but I'd like both of you to stay at home a little longer if possible. Violet's mouth was dry as Catherine and James openly expressed discomfort with their plan to move out. She was afraid that this persuasion would change Winter's mind. Violet questioned the blooming couple's failure to teach Winter even the simple etiquette of tea time in recent days. Violet thought Winter's parents might not love him as much as he thought, but it was impossible to say such harsh words, because he believed in and didn't doubt his parents' love. She thought she can't eat due to anxiety. Catherine continued, moreover, Violet, how's your health these days? Health? Violet trembled in fear, and said I believe my health is better. Winter intervened as Violet tried to answer with a pale face. It's not good, to be honest. It was also hard to come here and sit down. It isn't even weird if she falls down suddenly. The blooming couple was thinking of turning the story of faking illness around. But when Winter answered with a firm attitude, they paused. Winter continued, the doctor says she has a bad headache. That dog-like quack, Winter, who saw his parents' surprised eyes, coughed and continued. The incompetent doctor was using a bad quality medicine that didn't have any use now. What's more, the medicine causes headaches. The quack must have paid for the medication in the middle. So I'm going to put him in jail somehow. Oh, my God, is that so? I didn't even know that. Catherine was surprised, covering her mouth with her hands, and held Violet's hand and asked, Dear, are you okay now? Yes, I am fine, she said. Violet's hand trembled slightly. Whenever she met Mr. and Mrs. Blooming, she felt strange. Violet barely smiled with her trembling mouth. Why can't I just accept their concern? She thought. James then asked Violet to bring up the main purpose of the meal today. So, why do you want to move out so badly, Violet? Winter replies, Father, about moving out. James cut Winter's words in the middle and said, You don't have to wrap it up, Winter. As a father, I know better. You who have lived here since you're 12 wouldn't have brought up about moving out first. Violet, maybe you. James took a break and continued. Did you think it would be better to have children and raise them in the capital? Then Winter said, I've already said I won't have children. Winter, Violet said, but Winter pretended not to hear when Violet called his name with a bitter face. Winter then continued, If you're done eating, let's get up first. Violet sighed trembling as she saw him getting up from his seat. Then James, who confirmed that Winter had left, asked Violet with a slightly angry look. What is he talking about? What does he mean by not going to have a child? Violet replied, My husband doesn't want children. Then you have to persuade him. Would he have said that if he had something to put his mind to at home? James said. Then Catherine, who's next to him, stopped him. You know Winter's stubbornness. Once he makes up his mind, no matter who persuades him, he won't listen. Violet, what are you doing? Not going out and comforting him. Damn, what shitty people are they? Then I'll get up first. Violet excused herself and followed Winter. When both of them went out, James said, I can't believe the two of them have gotten so close to each other, for Winter to care so much about Violet. Catherine replied, I was speechless after seeing the two of them arrive together. They had never arrived together. Catherine continued, Thanks for today, we are sure. James said, Yes, it seems like Violet doesn't know yet that Winter and she can't have children. Catherine asked about some medicine. James said he had already prepared it. Catherine called her butler, and gave him order to call Violet's new doctor. Violet have to go out and Winter is waiting for Violet outside the mansion. He thought, I told her to hurry. What's taking her so long? Seriously. Then Hyel came. President, so you were here. I came over as I heard you were out. I need to report on Madame Violet's land ownership. Winter asked, What's the rush? Did you find something? Hyel hesitated and told everything to Winter. Then Violet came and said, I thought you would have left by yourself. He replied, and why would I leave you behind? Let's go. But Violet didn't move, with Winter's personality. Violet thought he would have left first, but he was unexpectedly waiting for her. Violet stopped in front of Winter and glanced at him. When it came to child problems, he also didn't want to back down. So he didn't say anything first. She couldn't figure out why he hated the idea of a child. Besides, he didn't even explain why. When the talk of children came out, he just shut up and it was over. While the two were still facing each other, Winter opened his mouth first, and said, "We can't have child." Violet flinched. Violet's eyes narrowed at Winter's ferocious, cold words. She asked but why. He replied, "You don't need to know." Violet continued, "I'm going to convince you." He replied, "I won't stop you from doing that. But I won't change my mind." Still, Violet's heart was a little relieved when he said that he would not stop her from persuading him. She thought she should be happy that Winter heard her. Winter isn't someone who will bend so easily. Winter turned back and asks, "Violet, it doesn't seem you've sold any portion of the land I gave you." She asked, "Are you referring to Long Leewood Plains?" Hyle, who is also standing there waiting for Violet reply. Winter continued, "Yes. I also noticed that you don't have any proper jewelry. Is there a reason as to why? Do you perhaps have something else that takes precedence over maintaining appearances?" Violet replied, "There is no case." "It's fine if that's the case," Winter replied. He said, "But now that we're on the subject, let's shop for some things for you." She replied, "It's fine. Really. I have everything I need. There's something I've always wanted to do." "Wait," he asked. While he was avoiding her, Violet reached out her hand carefully and held Winter's hand. Then she looked up at him and smiled faintly. "I want to hold hands," she said. She still couldn't tell when her husband was angry or not at all. She thought he was angry, but the corners of his mouth were a little twitchy. She said, "Now you're angry, aren't you?" When Violet asked, Winter shouted, "No. Why couldn't you hold my hand all this time? You could just hold it like this." She then continued, "Well, it was hard to find a time when you weren't busy." Winter, who was angry at Violet's frustrating words, stopped. Winter was not familiar with Violet holding hands until just now. Winter pulled his hand out first again this time. He said, "This isn't all that great. You and I really don't fit together. I told you that I'd buy you whatever you wanted." Then, Winter tried to pull her hand into his arm and once again grabbed Violet's hand tightly to see if she was familiar with it. Violet's hand was held in Winter's hand. He said, "Yet this is all you want. Let's go, now that we're holding hands. Let's also buy whatever you want." Rashay flinched and asked, "Aight now, don't you need to go to work?" He replied within grumpy way, "What kind of a company would go belly up just because one person's missing? It's not even an important store." He held Violet's hand firmly and said, "Let's go back to estate." Violet asked, "Weren't you trying to get to the main street for shopping?" He said, "I don't have time to walk around there and buy stuff. We'll call the main street here." Violet said, "How are you planning on doing that?" Violet thought, the first time she held his hand at the wedding hall, she was so nervous at that time. The man she had never seen before became her husband, but she didn't know what to do from there on. But he lost all his money that day because of her brother, so she felt sorry for letting his hand go that day. Violet regretted it. She thought, she should have held on to it that day. She should have followed him. If that happened, would he have hated her a little less? If their relationship has truly improved, maybe it'll be all right if she try and persuade him. Winter escorted Violet to the carriage. They both then went off. While riding carriage, Winter lost in thought. It was the conversation happened between him and Hyle regarding Violet land. Hyle informed Carlson Lowe is a singer, who is currently receiving a portion of Madame Violet's revenue from leasing out the land. Winter replied in angry tone, "I know who he is. I have met him a few times through work. He was popular wherever he went because of his pretty face." Hyle said, "Well, there are a few other possibilities. Perhaps it's for tax purposes." Winter replied, "Why do you think it's set up as royal property? You don't pay taxes on royal property." Hyle surprised and said, "Really?" He thought, we can assume that splitting up the land was for tax purposes, but I can't figure out why would there be another benefactor. It was illegal for me to peek at my wife's documents in the first place, so I can't even confront her directly. He said to Hale, "It's fine, you can head back." "Pardon?" Hale asked. "That's it, President, we need to solve this problem now." Winter replied, "She's spending money on another man. So what? If she's really having an affair, I can just get rid of Carlson Lowe." He thought he could do so as long as she doesn't love Carlson, as long as Violet doesn't leave him. I still don't know what kind of person my wife is. Neglecting her for the past 3 years using work as an excuse is probably the reason why. She doesn't seem like someone who would be unfaithful, but you never know. There are plenty of people who commit atrocities while wearing the face of an angel. However, I don't want to be suspicious over groundless speculations. He unconsciously squeezed her hand. She shouts, Winter, you suddenly squeeze my hand that hard. Winter, apologize. Oh sorry. Violet. Thought finally our relationship has began to move forward. The next day, all the merchants who bought almost all of their store items to the mansion, trying hard to please Violet with their items. Madam, how about this dress? This brooch would look great on you. Please take a look at this one as well. Violet said, you really mean it when you said you'd bring the shopping district to us. I can't believe you brought in so many shops. Winter said, we'd be inconveniencing them if we didn't buy much, so get whatever you'd like. Just think how disappointed they'd be if they didn't make much after coming all the way here. Violet replied, there's nothing bad about getting a face stamp on you, so it's also an investment concept, right? Winter has no words and room filled with awkward silence. Then he said, you are being uselessly smart. Violet began to show interest in flower products when they appeared. Even though she was trying to look around because she didn't think to buy anything, she said, pretty, oh my god, I've never seen such a flower pot before. Violet's curiosity spreading through her eyes. Then, Violet pointed to boots. There are boots, too. He frowned and said, what would you need boots for? He thought, that's not the kind of clothes I thought she will pick. Lady informed Violet. These days, ladies wear a lot of boots, instead of tea parties. There are also gatherings to manage the gardens. It's real? Violet asked. Lady replied, it's a southern trend these days. Violet said, Shish is unfamiliar with trends. When Winter saw Violet smiling from time to time, he thought that he should do this and waste his time sometimes. Tired of shopping, Violet fell on her bed as soon as she returned to her bedroom. She recalls how Winter bought all the items, brought by the merchant because Violet didn't want to purchase many items, but Winter bought everything. She wondered if moderation was not in Winter's vocabulary. While she was exhausted, 3 maids came in and began to unpack all the luggage. It was also work to organize because there was so much luggage. But I guess he really didn't like divorce. At first, she felt frustrated when he said he would not divorce her, but she thought it would be okay if the relationship with him gradually improved in this way. Young lady, where should I put this? New maid Jen maid at Blooming Estate. Violet asked. Did you say your name was Jen? Yes, she replied. She said, yes, I have been assigned as your personal maid. That's right. We recently replaced a few of the staff with new hires. The reason was that he was annoyed because they couldn't understand what he said quickly on the first day he changed his body with Violet. Violet continued, please put it on that table. You're going through a lot. Maid said, oh, I'm just having fun. Violet replied, then I'll open it with you. Violet lifted up her heavy body. Then other maids, including Jen, glanced at Violet. She heard the maids whispering that the young lady was a strange person, but sitting face to face, she may not be a comfortable person, but she was never a strange person. The little lady immediately memorized the names of the maids who came in for the first time and thanked them after asking for anything. On the contrary, the strange personality was on Winter's side, who had a temper tantrum even if only a small mistake was made. In addition, it didn't seem like the rumor that said the young master blamed the young lady was true. Then, the door burst open. When Winter, who was ready to go out, entered, the maids who were afraid of him greeted him and quickly left the room. It's a request. Please tell me when you're coming in before you come in, she said. Winter said to Violet without even paying attention. I've got something to do in the Harpit region. It'll take more than 15 days. Violet paused at his words and smiled without realizing it. She said, it's unlike you to tell me where you're going and for how long. He replied, it's because someone's been whining so much about it. Look at this, your room's a complete mess. She said, I wonder whose fault that is. I'm honestly not sure if we have room for everything. Just throw away whatever's useless, he said. Violet replied calmly, who is this for? Besides, you're gonna say that everything I have is useless. Grumpy Winter reply, for some reason, our princess knows my heart. Winter walked sarcastically to the closet. He said, if you understood, you can throw away all of your old stuff. Let's start with what's inside this closet. When he opened the door, he noticed blood again inside as if someone scratched it in order to survive. A bad memory returned. When Winter worked as a servant, the restaurant owner, who was an employer, often beat him up and locked him in a barn. At the same time, he was thinking of Violet's hand that he saw on the day of his father's birthday party. Violet as Winter, what's wrong? He replied, it's nothing. He thought, what a wild thought just ran inside his head, and who in their right minds would dare lock up a princess? After a while, he looked back and asked Violet, you've never been trapped anywhere, have you? She replied, yes, I was. Winter said, don't be ridiculous, who dares to the princess? Oh, was it perhaps when you were being educated by a royal tutor? She replied, I was a very good student. Let's drop this subject, you'll be late. Winter shouts in anger, don't cut me off, tell me who did it. She replied, it doesn't matter. Again Winter shouts, it does matter, tell me. Winter weighed down on his attempt to raise his voice. Violet, who was looking at the scene, opened her mouth again. I guess Ash really hated it that I was going to divorce, so he told Mother to teach me lesson. Winter said, don't be ridiculous, no matter how much Ash asked her to do it, my mother wouldn't have locked you in a closet. Violet continued, she must have been angry that I even dared to suggest a divorce. Winter's face was cold. He asked in a voice as if he had suddenly rested, this is my first time hearing. Why didn't you tell me? She replied, I tried to, right after I was released. I asked you multiple times to please give me a moment of your time. Whenever his wife caught him, Winter thought that the princess was blocking him from doing his job to talk about useless things again. Violet was always smiling when she said, let's talk, 3 years ago. And later she became angry. And these days she has given up. She continued, so I stole your body that day, I'm sorry about that. Violet rather smiled a little, as if it was funny to steal his body, but Winter couldn't laugh after her. Somewhere invisible, his wife who always looked perfect, seemed to be she is broken, he thought. Yes, mister, this will happen, if you forgot you have wife. Winter shouts, why do you say it as if it was nothing? She replied, because it's already in the past, then it is nothing? So you think this is something we can just gloss over, Winter shouts. Violet replied, but there's nothing that I can do about it. Then you should have said something to me, he said. All the maid are worried, wondering why they are fighting so suddenly. Then Hyle came in time. Ask what's going on. Why hasn't the president come out yet? Maid replied, we're not sure either. Sir Winter suddenly started raising his voice. Hyle said, President said, he was only telling the madam where he was going. Then, the door opened and Hyle pushed his head in and said, Lord, you really have to go now. Winter said, wait outside. Hyle insisted, President, but we have to go. Winter looked at Hyle with angry look, did I not tell you, to wait outside? When Winter made an impression and turned to Hyle, he flinched and quietly left the bedroom. Now maid or wondering even have. Was kicked out. When the door closed, Winter looked at Violet as if he was looking at a prey. Violet said, you are angry, aren't you? He asked, and who am I angry at? She replied, on me. He then continued, what, do you think I'm angry at you? She tilted her head at his question. Winter erased his expression to the point that it looked achromatic this time. Did I look angry all 3 years? Always, he asked. Well, yes. Violet said and then smiled faintly, and continued, you didn't look angry. You were angry, only towards me, and you have all the right to be angry. Winter have no words. Then said, anyway, I really need to sleep now, I'm tired. Violet sat on the bed and took off her slippers one by one. But Winter, who had to go out, came along and lay down on her bed. Violet asked with a rare expression, what are you doing? Lying down, he replied. She asked, why? It's my room. Grumpy Winter replied, what a shame, now you're also losing your bed to your husband. Violet murmured, what a strange man. Violet just lying down pretending to be tired, and she feels uncomfortable causes. Winter was staring at Violet. Violet said, embarrassed by her husband's cold yet warm eyes, you seemed busy though. You have to leave for work, Hyle is waiting outside. He replied, I'll go when you fall asleep. If you want to kick me out, quickly go to sleep. Winter said, closing his eyes first, and Violet followed him and murmured, now that it's done, go to work. He said, "Why do you keep kicking me out? You told me to stay the other day." She replied, "It's an appointment, and it's scheduled." She thought, was strange that such a person who only knew about work did not go out. Just when I thought I understood him, he acted strange. Eventually, Winter lay by her side the whole time without going out, and Violet, who was worried, fell asleep because she was so tired. Then Winter left the room. He said, "Hyle, tell them that we'll be even more late." Hyle said, "Aren't we leaving?" Winter replied, "Something more important than a business trip just came up." Winter soon entered his parents' mansion. After sunset, his parents were enjoying banquet with wine at a dinner table with some of Warhosen's nobles. Catherine, who found him, approached. "Winter, what's going on? I'm happy that I've been seeing you often lately, but I hope it's not affecting your work." Then Winter took a glance. He saw all the noble are enjoying banquet with his money, but still looked down at Violet. He said in a sharp way, "I heard you punished my wife and locked her in the closet." No wonder when he came in, Catherine wondered what else was wrong with him that made his face full of temper. Catherine, who has learned to control Winter's hot temper, said affectionately, "Winter, we did it all for you." "You know?" He asked, "How the hell is that for me?" She continued, "I don't know what's going on between you two, but Violet shouldn't do this to you. I don't want to see my son getting hurt." He said, "No matter what, she's not even a child. Isn't it too much to punish her like that?" She asked, "Did Violet say she was hurt a lot?" "I'm sorry if I did. I'll go apologize. I thought it was all for you." When Catherine spoke with a tearful look, Winter's expression, which had been angry all the way to his head, became somewhat relieved. She thought, Winter has always been desperate for affection. There's no need to panic. All I have to do is act remorseful and hook, line, and sink. He said, "Anyway, this time I can't help but to let it go, but you can't do that from now on. Never." With a sinister smile she said, "Sure, I'll never do that again." Only then did Winter's anger soften. He then continues, "Then please, apologize to Violet. She said off course if she is hurt." Catherine thought, what a simpleton. Then Catherine asked, warmly patting Winter's arm, "Would you like to eat while you're here?" "No, I have to go right away." Then Violet gets an apology, and I'll end up paying no more for this year's party. Catherine, who was not embarrassed at his words, paused, and said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Two people can resolve matters between themselves however they like, but you meddled into my personal affairs. It's only fair for me to meddle in your personal affairs as well, Mother." She asked, "Still, you're going to withhold funds. Was this Violet's idea? She always hated coming to parties, so she must say so." Winter made an absurd expression as if he didn't notice such an obvious thing. He continued, "Mother too, it's money involved, so of course, it's my idea." Winter, in the end, Catherine's voice, which seemed soft all along, became louder. Winter grimaced and continued, "I'm really busy. If you're going to nag me, don't forget to write it down somewhere and do it next month. I'll listen to you until you're sick of it. I'm 27 now. Why did you interfere with my divorce when I'm not even a child? Besides, it's not like you can't have a party just because I don't give you money for a few months." Catherine's shock was even greater because he was a son who listened to his parents, in a world where titles were not everything. The blooming couple had no choice but to strengthen their power through the social world. The inability to hold a party is directly linked to a flaw in power, either way or not. For half a month Violet went to Maureen's silk shop. The people who gathered at Maureen's silk shop book club were all restless. It was not only embarrassing for the princess to join such a small gathering of people with only money, but she wasn't even just a princess, but a princess whose husband is Winter Blooming. A woman was standing there, with straight posture, despite her modest appearance. Everyone in the meeting immediately noticed that she was Violet Blooming. Lady introduced Violet to others. "Please welcome Madam Violet Blooming to our book club." Violet now and greets everyone with courtesy. One lady asked from Madame Morini, "Why did you invite the princess here?" Madame Morini replied, "I didn't expect her to actually come to a gathering of merchants. When I received her letter, I thought a disaster was about to strike." Violet wrote, "I remembered that you invited me to your book club last time you came to the Blooming estate. If it's all right with you, could you tell me the schedule so I can attend the next meeting?" She's the wife of Winter Blooming, the man that has complete control over commerce on Leon Road. She must have a reason for attending an insignificant gathering like this one. I should be careful not to step on her toes. Violet asked from Morini, "You said this was your store, correct?" Morini flinched. She immediately got up from her chair and replied, "Pardon, that's correct, Princess Mean. Madam, I'm actually quite ashamed of my humble little store. We should have at least gotten you a more comfortable chair." Violet replied, "Oh, don't say that. I simply came to thank you today. Thank you for inviting me to your cozy shop, Madame Morini." Ladies thought, Madame Violet is actually much more gentle of a person than I thought she'd be. After the meeting, Violet left the place. She thought, I was honestly quite nervous. I mustered up all my courage so I could try and make friends. Had I been rejected by them as well? They all treated me very nicely, but they were afraid of Winter. Even so, Violet got up early. Everyone was really sad that she was leaving, so she was quietly excited to see if they really liked her. Finally, Violet felt relief, and she thought while blushing. The weeks without Winter passed by quickly. Winter already informed Flip that he should tell all the conversation that were happens during the Blooming banquet to Violet, thinking that Catherine would not be able to hold the party easily because she had no money. For the time being, the fear in her heart disappeared and became lighter. Perhaps because of that, while Winter was gone, the mansion was perfectly quiet for a while. But I feel so anxious. Violet walked back to the carriage but paused in front of a store. She liked the platinum wristwatch that she saw over the show window. It was a product with a price that made her hesitant, but on the contrary, it would be too cheap for Winter. Violet, who had been hesitant for a long time, mustered all her courage and entered inside the store. Violet, who had been hesitant for a long time as the merchant approached, he asked, "Welcome, madam. Is there something you're looking for in particular?" She replied, "I want to give my husband, Lord Winter Blooming, a present. Could you show me the watch that's in the window display?" Then the merchant flinched. He paused and said, "Well, just take it. What do you need?" "Will just the wristwatch suffice? You're welcome to take anything from our store." Violet replied, "How can I do that? I have a brooch that I don't use. I want to remove from my collection." "Please show me," he said. The merchant looked closely at the brooch. Although the trend is outdated, it is still valuable. So fortunately there is a larger price difference. With the price difference, he said, "With this watch you can purchase more product." Violet saw a handkerchief and asked to pack it too. He replied, "Madam, still some amount is left." She said, "Then could I get the rest as change?" And Philippe, "Take this and buy some snacks for the staff working in the mansion," and returned home after that. Flip replied, "Yes, madam." She thought, now that I think about it, I've never once bought a gift for Winter, since he's always away on every major occasion. I wonder will he like it. When Violet returned, Jen he made, inform her, "The snacks you bought for us were super delicious, madam. Everyone loved it." Violet asked, "Did you really enjoy it that much?" Jen replied, "Of course, only crumbs are remain left." Jen took some medicine, pill on the spoon, sprinkled it with honey. Violet asked, "What's this medicine?" Jen replied, "It's a new medicine prescribed by your physician." Violet said, "I see. I'll have to thank doctor later." Violet gulped it down in one bite and drank water. While Jen was about to leave the room, Violet asked, "Is Winter back yet?" Jen replied, "Yes, but the president went to his bedroom right away. Would you like to greet him? Should I prepare your nightgown?" Really? She thought. Winter must be tired from long journey. She continued, "That's not necessary. I'm sure he needs some rest. I'll greet him tomorrow. You can retire for the day as well." "Yes, ma'am, I hope you have sweet dreams," Jen said, and then she left the room. She thought, it's already quite late, and there's no need for me to rush. I'm sure he already owns plenty of better watches. He probably won't even care about this one. My goodness, I got ahead of myself and bought it on an impulse. I should reconsider in the morning if I should give it to him or not. Yes, in the morning. She can't fall asleep. Just in case, she went to Winter's bedroom and saw the lights leaking out because the lights hadn't been turned off yet. "Winter?" Violet knocked on the door and a voice from the inside said, "Come in." Violet, who opened the door, paused. Hyle was still reporting something. Violet was embarrassed to walk around in pajamas. so she wondered if she should close the door again, but then Winter said to Hyle, "What are you doing? Get lost." "I was going to do that anyway," Hyle said and quickly left the bedroom. Violet walked in with a slightly red face and stood in front of Winter, who was walking towards her. He continued, "Perfect timing. I was actually about to come to see you about something." "Sit down," Winter said and pulled out a chair. She was embarrassed to hand over the present right away. "Oh, did you say you had something to say? Come and sit down," he said. Violet said, "If you insist." Scene shifts to doctor's room. Maid Jen, who went to Winter's newly hired Dr. Beryl. Jen, who was out of breath, said, "Dr. Beryl, I came to retrieve the prescription for the headaches. I apologize for being late. I was helping Madame Violet get ready for bed." "Beryl, Violet's current doctor," he replied. "Ha ha, slow down or you'll fall. So, have you given her any of the medicine yet?" Jen replied, "Yes, as you said, I gave it to her just before she went to bed." Doctor said, "Good work, have her take it the same way this time too." "Thank you, doctor," she replied. She then continued and said, "Speaking of which, I'm quite worried about Madame Violet. Her body is so fragile, yet she wishes to bear a child." Doctor gets shocked. He asks, "What do you mean? Didn't the two of them not want any children?" Ah replied, "Pardon, you must have misheard. Madame Violet desperately wishes for a child." That's strange, he thought. The Duke asked him to give it to Violet because his son and his son's wife didn't want to get pregnant. Not worry. It's a safe drug that helps facilitate a healthy pregnancy, so they asked him to keep it a secret. Beryl was holding the medicine and money given by Duke James Blooming. But why is James Blooming secretly feeding her this medicine? Isn't it a drug that can help her get pregnant? As such doubts arise, he thought he would rather confess now. Beryl was terrified, but with an indifferent face, he snatched the bottle of medicine from Jen's hands. She asked, "What happened, doctor?" He thought, however, it was hard to avoid punishment because he had been paid twice already for giving Violet this medicine. He took a gasp and said, "Never mind, it's nothing. I just thought I gave you the wrong bottle." She replied, "Mew, you really surprised me there. It's the correct bottle, right?" He wobbled and said, "Yes, it seems so. All right then. It's getting late. I should be returning now." Jen replied, "Good evening, doctor. Thank you so much. Please be careful." He thought, "There's nothing I can do now. Following orders from the Duke and Duchess. I know nothing." Scene shifts to the back in Winter's room. He said, "There's a mansion in the capital that you might like. Hyle is negotiating right now." "What kind of mansion is it?" she asks. He replied, "It's a little bit on a hillside. There's a sunny garden and a white fence. If we succeed in buying it, let's stay there next spring. Do whatever you want. Cover the garden with flowers." Winter was talking as if it wasn't a big deal, but when he glanced at Violet, her eyes were filled with innocent joy. Winter laughed at the sight. "Oh my, you must be happy." She replied, "Happily, thank you." Violet was encouraged by happiness and continued, "Well, I saw a wristwatch on the street earlier." He said, "Do you like the watch? Do you want me to buy it for you? But I heard that nobles don't wear watches, for some reason. Should I buy it for you?" She said, "No. That's not what I want. I already bought it. I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to get the right size just by looking at your wrist." Winter looked at Violet, who had already brought it but looked as if she was wondering what to do. Afraid of being rejected again, she fiddled with the box and eventually opened it. She pulled Winter's wrist towards her. As tall as he was, his arms and legs were long, so he didn't look uncomfortable even when she pulled them like that. "Would it be the right length because I bought it with a guess?" Violet murmured and recklessly fastened the watch. She thought, what a relief, it fits just right, and it looks great on him. She then spoke, "I don't know if you like it though." Winter twitched and asked, "What is the occasion?" "Pardon." She flinched and saw him with surprised face. He continued, "On what occasion are you giving me this? It's an object that's distanced from royalty like you." She lowered her head and said, "But you wear them, and it reminded me of you. So I wanted to gift it to you because I thought it would look good on you." Winter examined the watch carefully. He said, "I see. but you don't have to do something like this again. From Winter's words, Violet gets startled. He continued, I'm simply someone who brings in the money. There's no need to give me anything in return. Violet was surprised. She then replied that no one in this world should have to live like that. He said, why not? That's something I live by, so I don't expect anything. He thought, nothing ever comes back from waiting or hoping for something. Besides, no one cares enough to wait for me anyway. Winter briefly recalled the day when he first met Violet. On the day of the wedding, he was talking to Hyel. My lord, do you know how to do a knight's greeting? If the ladies stick out their hands first, you can hold them with both hands and pretend to kiss them. Winter replied, I know, but why would you tell me that? Hyel continued, you've already been given the title of lord when you got engaged. Yeah. It's been a month since I got it, and I've never seen anyone call me lord. Let alone that way of greeting. Everyone calls me mister. But would a sky-like princess acknowledge a man who has just been knighted and has gray eyes right away? It was such a sarcastic remark. He only paid money to buy a title. I'm someone whose worth only increases when his wealth does. I'm an outlander that no one acknowledged. He didn't think seriously about it until he saw a woman who looked too young, dazzling, and nobler than expected got off. A woman like a flower that blooms only in the sky who can never be touched, and she looked at Winter. Nice to meet you, Sir Winter, holding out her hand as if it were natural. Winter broke out from his memory from Violet's voice. Winter, are you listening to me? No one in the world should have to live like that. Those rules don't make any sense. He thought, Violet has always turned the way I live my life upside down. Clenching his fist, he said, I still don't understand. Why would a princess like you act like a commoner and buy a watch? She replied, as I expected, it's not to your liking. No, it is to my liking, he said. Yes. I'm going to wear it for the rest of my life. Only then did Violet laugh, relieved at his joke. Winter glanced at her smile, and he smiled once. As he got closer to her, he felt like he was becoming an ordinary man. He felt like he should just be an ordinary husband, coming back if being waited for, thinking of the other person even on something that has nothing to do with him, without feeling pressured or inferior to the other person's status or lineage. He didn't have to prove his existence with money. Just like an ordinary man. Violet then broke room silence and said, oh my, look, what's the time? Winter said, ah yes. You must be quite tired at this hour. If that's all, you should go back and rest. Your body needs it. Violet thought for a while and said in a businesslike voice, it's been 2 days since we joined in a room. After all, it was urgent business, but I think it's okay today. I mean, if it's fine with you, I don't think a 2-day difference would be that big of a deal. Winter saw Violet's innocent face and smirks, and said, how candid of you, princess. He continued, said, this is very unlike you. You're never the one to offer. She replied, it's not very unlike me. Well, it's a date set by the family. Is that really it? He asked. She continued, should I have another reason? If you don't want to, then just say so. Violet continued, of course, I know you don't like children or sleeping together, but to some extent, in a marital relationship. Wait a minute, he said. Winter narrowed his eyebrows. He said, even if I said I don't like children, why do you think I don't like sleeping together? You said you were dissatisfied last time. It also seems like you're always avoiding it, she said. Violet tried to speak calmly as usual, but she couldn't hide her expression because she was hurt inside. She continued, I understand because the situation was like that, so you must have hated it. Her heart ached after barely finishing her words. He grabbed Violet's arm and said, Violet, don't take this the wrong way, but if it weren't for that damn rule about when we should be sleeping together, I would have spent every night with you until you got sick of me and chased me out of the room. At his words, Violet wrapped her hands around her mouth and saw him with little boundaries. She then said, exactly which part causes misunderstanding? He replied in hurry, I just didn't want you to misunderstand me as some guy who only thinks about that kind of thing. Well, if that's what you wanted me to not misunderstand, it's a little too late, she replied. He continued and tried to give her explanation. What I'm trying to say is that you've been looking at it the wrong way. It's not that don't like sleeping with you. She then replied, all right, I understand. I'll try to change the sleeping rules then. But too drastic of a sudden change would be difficult for me. He asked, can I kiss you and can I also do it like last time? Winter looked distressed, but as if that was enough, he lifted up Violet, hugged her, and headed to his bed. He laid his wife on the bed and lowered his head to untie the ribbon on the neck of her pajamas with his teeth. Then Violet said seriously, oh, you can do this with your hands. Winter had an unsure expression on whether to laugh or suffer. Violet tilted her head, wondering why he looked like that. He said, you're usually very smart, but why are you so clueless in bed? The next day, Winter got up earlier than Violet, and he took a cold water shower. He kept thinking about Violet while taking the shower. He took 3-4 shower to cool down himself. Damn, why he is so hot. After taking a shower, he came back to his room. He saw Violet sleeping soundly. He strokes her hair. And then someone knocked on the door. It was Hyle. When Winter opened the door, Hyle said, good morning, President. I heard there was something you'd like to discuss? Winter said, yeah, and don't come in yet. Violet's still asleep. Hyle handed him coffee. Winter opened his mouth after he gulped down coffee to get rid of fatigue. Winter continued, I thought about it yesterday. About a child. All I've seen so far is the mixed race in LaCroix, right? Hyle response, that's right. It's easier to retrieve information about mixed children. Winter continued, I want you to look into the area where the Kanites tribe used to occupy. Must be some information there, too. Hearing Winter's words, Hyle asked, President, you wouldn't ask me to cross the continent and go to the Alika region, would you? Think about my wife and child. Winter replied, you don't have them. Hyle shouts, I would if only you didn't work me to death. This is too much. Then send someone to find out, Winger replied. Hyle was relieved to hear that he didn't have to go in person. He said, yes, sir. After giving him some brief reports, Hyle left. He thought, although I doubt we'll find any useful information, I have to find a way to be able to bear a child so that she won't bring up divorce ever again. It would have been nice if one could just pop out of thin air. If only that was possible. If only I could get rid of all the excuses Violet could use to leave me. Well, viewers, isn't this imaginative kid is so cute? Violet woke up. She called Winter. Are you already working? He said, you are awake. How are you feeling? Violet replied, good morning. It's hard for me to stand. Winter said, don't strain yourself. Your body is delicate. Since you're up, I was hoping that you'd take a look at the outfit that I'll be wearing to the monastery. Violet sat on a chair. The sponsor party is this week already. All right. Let's see it. She read invitation letter and said, the invitation says you should dress according to the basic formality. You need a white bow tie. Can't it be a different color? Winter asked. Violet replied, if we're speaking about the basic formality in LaCroix, then it's white shirts and white bow ties for men. He almost made a big mistake from the start. Violet continued, he said. Violet asked, are you going to go with a blue one for the handkerchief? It would be better if you chose the Blooming household's preferred color. The Blooming household's preferred color? Is there even such a thing? Winter asked. Winter's annoying murmur made Violet look embarrassed. Then Winter narrowed his eyebrows. He said, the nobles really are an odd bunch. Don't make that face. I didn't have a chance to learn. She wasn't surprised to think that Winter was pathetic for not knowing that. She was surprised that the Blooming couple did not tell him what they should have told him. Although the capitalist was exceptionally more than usual, the people of LaCroix were ashamed to show off something openly. However, there was a contradiction in showing superiority and factionalism among them with their preferred jewelry or colors, but to think that his parents didn't share such an important family detail. Violet said, it's good. I just bought a handkerchief. Violet brought the box containing the watch and took out the dark gray handkerchief that had been laid under it. She said, the people of the Lawrence family prefer dark gray. He asked, isn't that something I'm not supposed to wear? Violet replied, you are my husband, but if you don't like it, then you don't have to. Just like how I'm considered a member of the Blooming household. You are also a member of the Lawrence household. She helped Winter to get dressed, she said. Then the bow tie would just be the finishing touch you need. He said, when it comes to things like this, I consider it a good thing that we can switch our bodies. Violet replied, I'm glad I can be of help. While we're on that topic, there's something I wanted to ask of you. Winter, would it be possible to switch our bodies a day earlier? He asked. What, a day before the sponsor party? She continued with dull expression on her face. Your mother will host a tea party that day. Since we were going to switch our body anyway, I was hoping you would go in my place. Winter saw Violet's depressed face, then he opened his mouth. Fine, but you have to bring in a big profit from the Cantus monastery in return. Violet replied, okay, then I will work hard. Winter then said, ok, then we will switch bodies on Saturday morning. Violet replied happily, yes sure, I'll prepare for it accordingly. She thought, I'd forgotten that the party was this week. Inevitably, time has passed and the promised day has come. I've become so much closer to Winter these past few days, and we've been working hard to understand each other. But what if we can't switch our bodies anymore? What if I end up dead instead? The happiness I've gathered and my expectations of our future are weighing me down. I can't pretend as if I'm not afraid to perform such an act. On Saturday morning, Violet, who was ready to go to the tea party, opened a drawer and took out a small bottle of medicine. Inside it was a poison extracted from the southern white clover that was obtained while managing the garden. She learned that this amount will kill in a matter of minutes. Violet looked at the medicine bottle and said to herself, I'm a little scared. She suddenly remembered Winter, who was joking around beside her. She thought, nothing will change even if I'm scared. I'm still a sinner to Winter, and I still have to endure all criticism. Out if I have no choice but to live such a life. Wouldn't it be better that I die now? Clengaze her chest, and said I don't care what happens to me, is what I want to believe. If I die like this, will Winter attend my funeral? This exact thought crossed my mind during that first time. I thought I didn't have any lingering feelings left. But it seems that I'm still expecting a lot from Winter. It was dark as if she was falling asleep, but when she opened her eyes, she was in the carriage. Hyle was sitting opposite. He spoke, My lord, is everything okay? I'm fine. Where are we going? She replied. Oh, we're going to the tea party that is being held by the lady. I think it'll take about 2 hours, madam. When asked where they were going, Hyle immediately noticed and answered the question in soft words. She thought we successfully switched bodies, but it's still hard to get used to Winter's body. Violet felt Winter's healthy body comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. Even the carriage, which was made relatively to Winter's body shape, felt stuffy because the ceiling felt low. Violet, who had opened the window to look outside, touched her husband's watch in his wrist, and said, You really haven't untied your watch. Hyle, who was checking the document without a break, heard her talking to herself, and replied, He really cares about it. He usually gets tired of things easily. That's a relief. Violet smiled unconsciously. After that, she looked at the clock for a while. She jokingly said to Hyle, Yes, his personality is like fire indeed. I hope he's not flipping any tables at the tea party. Scene shifts to tea party. Winter arrived at the Bloomings mansion. As soon as guests saw Violet, they all start whispering. It seems that Madame Violet has arrived. Here she is again, without her husband. Do you think the rumors are true? Guest kept whispering. Even Winter can hear their voice clearly. One said, Does Sir Winter really? He thought, looks like they've started to talk about me, as expected. Not one person has even bothered to say a word to me. Whatever. It's none of my business. I only came here for Violet's sake anyway. Winter moved through the crowd. He knew Violet didn't have any friends here, so he was going to make friends by releasing advanced information while he was here. Winter had a tight grip on the local commercial district, so he looked familiar. A man said, So I've heard that they're planning to build a new building at the entrance of Leon Road. Another guest asked, Really? It's the first time I'm hearing of this. The building's supposed to be for? He said, Well, there's been no information about the purpose of it yet. Winter stepped in immediately and said, I heard there's a theater company coming in. Hearing Violet words, guests are shocked. They ask, How do you know, madam? Winter replied, My husband told me. Now, do you have anything else that you're curious about? Winter thought, the building owned by Winter. I guess it's time to slowly start putting this body swap to good use. Maybe I can help Violet make some friends by sharing vital money-making information. Given the occasion, I guess I can share some valuable information that'll help make you some money. Winter, who inadvertently expressed his money by putting his thumb and index finger in a circle, belatedly recalled that his wife would never do this. People began to ask this and that as if they had waited. Guest asked, I heard Lord Winter called all the busy merchants a while ago. Is that true? Winter replied, Why did he call them all? He only called the high-end stores. Guest asked, Either way, that must mean he did call all of them? That's correct. I was in need of new clothes, Winter replied. Guests start gossiping, so he called all of them over for his wife. Sir Winter did. One even asked, Then what about the garden party that was held at the capital? Did you really attend the party with Sir Winter? Winter thought, I thought I said I'd share valuable money-making information, but what's with all these cheap gossips? He continued, Yes, that's true too. We went together. Someone said, I suppose all the rumors are true then. Winter asked, The rumors? Guest replied, The rumors that Sir Winter has forgiven you, madam. Winter flinched. He asked, I did what? What is there for me to forgive? Vo before he can shout, he heard a small disturbance, and when he turned around, a lady was embarrassed by food spilled into her clothes. As Winter turned his head without much interest, the woman in front said, After Lord Winter forgave you, the scapegoat has changed. In the meantime, looks like the next target has been marked. Winter asks, Did she do anything wrong? Lady replied, She's the one that's been harassing you, madam. Now that Sir Winter has forgiven you, she'll most likely become the target of a new gossip whirlwind. Either way, there's no need for you to be polite to her. The word gossip hits Winter hard. The lady continued, That's right. If you get tangled with the likes of her, you'll receive the same treatment as before. Winter, who frowned at the word forgiveness and wondered what it means, looked back again. The lady, who looked blankly at her clothes, stood under the shade of a tree like a sinner. The people next to him shouted back. Perhaps because they thought Winter and Violet's relationship had improved, the sensible nobles apologized and made excuses for what had happened. Even if he didn't know the details, he could only see that Violet had been a sinner who was not forgiven by her husband, so if she didn't dress up in a dark and modest way to fit his subject, she suffered from harassment and criticism. Violet had always asked him with a soft expression and tone. Later, she came out angry and begged hard. But Winter did not do his wife's favor until the day he changed his body. Winter, who resented his blood all his life, has never been more grateful for his bloodline than he is these days. If he hadn't changed his body, he would still be putting his work first. As it was about time Violet arrived, Winter was nervously standing where the carriage stood. There were so many things he wanted to ask her. As he was nervous, his brother, Dave, approached. Violet, what are you doing here? Winter looked back at him with annoyance, and said, I'm waiting for my wife, no husband. Dave said regretfully at the words, he has never come here before. Winter replied, he's coming today. Dave sighed softly, stop daydreaming, and waiting for someone who won't come and rely on me. Winter shouts, why would I rely on you? It was so absurd that he suddenly spoke informally, but Dave didn't care and answered, how long are you going to be so lonely? Stop being stubborn, Violet. Dave naturally wrapped his hands around his sister-in-law's. His behavior made an impression on Winter and he pushed Dave roughly. Dave smiled funnily. Winter paused at his laugh. Then Violet, who was in Winter body, arrived. She said, that's enough. Violet, who was in Winter body, arrived after attending the meeting. Diev stagger, he said, Winter, you never come, so why are you here now? He saw grim expression, and suddenly he turned back and ran away in fear. Violet was about to say something, but Winter interrupted and said, Has DF always acted like this toward you? Violet lowered her head with a gloomy expression. Winter spoke. Is that so? All right, I will take care of him. Winter tried to touch his body, but Violet flinched and said, Wait, our bodies will switch back if we touch. But Winter didn't care and touch her. He said, It doesn't matter. This is much more urgent than the wine acquisition. He hugged her, and their bodies of the two changed in that condition. After that, when Winter didn't let go of Violet, he said, You said you liked introducing your husband to the other guests, so go ahead. She asked anxiously, Did something bad happen? She saw his distress face. She thought something did happen. Does he finally understand the loneliness I felt at all those parties? Is he finally starting to understand me a little? She hugged him and said, All right. Why don't we do just that? Thank you so much for coming today. I really mean it. Winter closed his eyes and said, No problem. As they walk, the clouds suddenly came. It looks like it's going to rain soon. Violet looked up and said, I should have worn my black dress shoes. Winter replied, Don't worry about it. I'll just carry you if it rains. Violet asked, That was a joke, right? This is the first time Winter came in party with Violet. All the guests are surprised. One said, Did Sir Winter came? My goodness. Catherine watched both of them. She suddenly walked towards them with a friendly face. She said, Oh, what brings you here, Winter? Welcome. My dear. I guess you had some free time in your schedule to attend this party. Winter replied in grumpy way, I'm here to find out who my wife said she didn't like. Violet pulled Winter's arm in surprise, as if fighting him right away when he spoke as if she had been depressed. She said, When did I say that? Winter replied, I read your mind. She said, He's just saying that in jest. Winter replied, Didn't you know that I like to make jokes now and then? All the guests glared both of them. Winter crumpled his hands into his pockets, crumpled them as he had an impression, and looked at the people. He then said, Look at their eyes darting around, all disgruntled. Violet was worried but felt a part of her heart tickling. She thought it would be nice if her husband came, but she didn't know it would be this reassuring. Then Violet opened her mouth and said, Winter, let's head over there this time. He replied, I'm not going anywhere. You don't need to rush. We can meet everyone slowly. She thought, it would have been nice had he come to me before I contemplated death, but now is not too late either. Then suddenly rain started. Catherine informed, Everyone, please head inside the building. All the guests rushed. Winter said, Looks like I really have to carry you now. After all, a princess never runs in the rain. Started removing his coat. She asked, what are you? Winter cuts her words and says, Since we'll get wet if we go anywhere, so let's wait here. Hyel will bring an umbrella soon, so let's stay like this for a while. He covered Violet with his coat. She leaned on him. She thought, I can hear his heartbeat. I thought I didn't have any lingering feelings left. I thought it wouldn't matter if I died, but it feels like this faint yet steady sound is giving me a will to live. She tried to look up, but Winter said, You'll get wet, just stay still even if you don't like it. She replied, It's not like that. He asked, Then what is it? She lowered her head and in a low voice she said, I'd like to move to the capital as soon as possible. Winter paused for a while from Violet's words, then he spoke, Having experienced this tea party myself, it really is annoying. I can see why you hated attending them every week. She replied while blushing, I really want to live with just the two of us. He replied, All right, we'll do that then. He hugged her tightly. She replied, Also I don't hate standing here with you at all. He replied, That's good to hear. She thought, his embrace is so warm. Then Hyel came. He shouted, President, I've brought an umbrella. He asked, What took you so long? What do you mean? I ran here, Hyel replied. Come closer before you get van soaked, Winter said to Violet. Violet thought, It's a good thing that it rained. Winter's arms are so warm it makes me want to cry. Violet looked at Winter with a warm smile. Winter saw her beautiful face. He grabbed her face, and said, No one can see because of the umbrella. Under was huge that it's impossible to peek. Winter kissed Violet. She suddenly gets lost in thought. If Winter knew how I felt, I wouldn't ever switch our bodies again. That actually might be possible now. We might be able to understand each other even if we don't switch our bodies. And the more we know about each other, the closer we'll become. Then suddenly the rain stopped. They both looked at the sky. Violet squeezed her hand, and said, "I guess it was just passing rain." He said, "It seems like the rain had stopped." The next day, the couple took a 2-hour train ride from the nearest train station to Cantus Monastery. Entering the wide vineyard owned by the monastery, powerful people in the country were gathered. When the sponsorship party began, monks came out with, "Thank you for joining today's sponsorship party. I heard that the food is shabby because it's a monastery, but the wine is pretty good. I won't nag you, so please enjoy it." The monk said it and smiled as if it was a joke, and the people laughed along. Winter said to Violet, "Wow, their wine is incredible indeed. I have to secure a deal with them somehow." "Is it that good?" she murmured. She smelled the wine found. It's very fragrant. That she couldn't handle it, she thought. Ever since she changed her medicine, she started to have slight nausea, but it was never to this extent. She thought perhaps maybe she is pregnant. "No, that's impossible," she murmured. "There's no way I'd have morning sickness when we only slept together a week ago. Perhaps it's a side effect of the body switch, but what it can be, a girl hope." Winter saw Violet not taking a sip from her wine glass. He asked, "You're not drinking?" She replied, "Yes. I can't drink red wine. If he would like, he can drink mine, hers too." Winter replied happily, "All right then." She thought, "I've hoped for it for so long. I should stay away from alcohol just in case. I must get properly checked once I get back." After a while, Violet started socializing with other guests. She speak, and so, making use of the white fabric was really incredible. The guest was impressed. They didn't expect her to notice such a small detail. Violet replied, "Well, it was a stage prop to convey the main character's heartbreak. I was deeply moved by the director's intention." "How knowledgeable you are. We'd love to have you at our theater sometime." Winter felt out of place. He thought, "It feels like the conversation is somewhat going well, but I have no idea what they're talking about." Violet noticed Winter's mood. She whispers in his ears, "If you'd like to socialize with the nobles of Le Crown, there are 100 novels you must read and 15 plays that you must watch." Winter replied, "I guess everyone's had plenty of leisure to enjoy while I was out working like a dog." Violet said, "Shish, be careful of what you say, Winter." Winter took a card. Violet asked this. He replied, "It's the card you use to write down your contribution." She said, "You haven't given yours yet. I saw them collecting these earlier." He continued, "I'm still deciding on how much I should write down. It should be just enough for those monks to gladly give me their wine." She replied, "Oh, that's why you held on to it. What about 100,000, even for you?" "That might be." He replied, "The phrase, 'even for you,' doesn't apply to people like me. At times like this, it really makes me feel like you're in the dark." She asked, "What do you mean?" He replied, "You're oblivious of how the world functions." Then a voice approached her. He called Violet. Carlson Lowe, an opera singer and the second son of the Lowe household. Then a blonde handsome man who was far away looked back at Violet and smiled refreshingly. He said, "Violet, long time no see." Violet approached with joy. Hearing the greetings of the two, Winter turned around and Violet smiled happily and called Winter. As Winter approached, Violet introduced them. "This is Carlson, the second son of the Lowe family. You know his face, right?" Winter replied, "I saw it often. What's your relationship with my wife?" Hearing Winter's words, Violet flinched. She said, "Winter, what are you saying?" Carlson smiled. He then replied, "No need to make that kind of face. We are childhood friends. So there has been discussion of marriage between our families at one point, but that is all." Winter replied, "You're childhood friends and have discussed marriage?" Carlson said, "Haha, that's quite a strong grip, sir. When Winter tried to break the hand he held for a handshake, Carlson slowly got scared. Violet shook her head as if not to do. Carlson whispered to Violet when Winter tisked his tongue. Carlson whisper. How can such a jealous person just go outside like that? But why is he always out instead of coming home? Violet looked embarrassed at Carlson's honest question. Winter kept glaring both of them. Carlson the leave cut before leaving he spoke. I should leave before I cause further misunderstanding. Violet replied. All right. We were also just about to take a walk along the vineyard. I will see you next time, Carlson. She pushed Winter and said, Let's go, Winter. When they both left, Carlson had a sinister smile and he took Winter's name. While walking in the garden she told Winter that it was just something our parents discussed because we've known each other since we were young. That's really it. He angrily replied, They tried to marry their princess off to a sleazy playboy like him? Violet took Carlson's stand said, He's not as bad as the rumors claim him to be. Winter replied, Nonsense, I know he's a drunkard. Violet was puzzled and asked, What? How do you know that? He replied, I can tell. The way his hand trembled is a dead giveaway. She said, Still, you shouldn't jump to conclusions just because of that. He shouts, You're only defending him because he's your childhood friend. He thought. He just hated the fact that Violet was more involved with a man named Carlson Lowe than he thought. In his head, Violet's long Leawood land came to mind. When he found out that the man who received the tenant's fees even used to be engaged to her, he felt disgustingly depressed. He was going to find out about the land as soon as the event was over. A monk was seen falling. Then someone shouted. Someone called a doctor. The monk fainted. As Violet ran in a hurry, Winter followed her in a surprise. As they got closer, the fallen monk's body was convulsing. Violet leaned down to examine the condition of the young monk. The poison was spreading blue from the monk's hand, and in his hand was a bundle of donation envelopes with raw flowers received from the patrons. Someone shouts, What are you waiting for? You, call the doctor, and you, collect all the envelopes. Violet shouts, Don't touch envelope. She checked the flowers in the envelope one by one and left one bag aside. It looked almost the same, but it was a different flower with a dot behind the petals. Violet immediately loosened the ribbon around her waist and tied it tightly to the monk's arm so that the poison would no longer rise. She thought who could do, using such poison, perhaps someone wants to harm him. Scene shifts. The night after the sponsor party, Violet and Winter both went back home. I find it suspicious that such a dangerous flower was there. I'm certain that someone was trying to harm the monk on purpose. Winter said, The party has been cancelled. You don't have to worry about it for now. The police will take care of the rest. At least the monk's life was safe thanks to you. Violet continued, But I can't just overlook this incident. But Winter left the room. Her maid said, Madam Violet, why don't we change your clothes first? They must be uncomfortable. Violet agreed. Ooh, let's do that first. Will you call the doctor for me after I change my clothes? Pardon, maid asked, Are you not feeling well again? Violet replied, No, it's different this time. There's something I want to confirm with him. On the day Violet and her husband joined in a room, Violet's doctor, Beryl, was called by James Blooming. James paid a lot of money and ordered that if Violet showed signs of pregnancy, he would unconditionally answer that she is pregnant. He soon found out that Violet was not pregnant even though she had the same symptoms as a pregnant woman. James's medication will cut her menstruation for the time being, and she will suffer from nausea and fever. Still, she was not pregnant. The money he received from James had long been spent on his young son's school expenses. Beryl, who is now called to Violet's bedroom, examined her with a trembling hand, but an expression of no concern. Beryl reacted more violently to hide his fear. Then Violet called his name. He snapped out of his thought. Violet continued, What do you think, Beryl? I've been feeling a lot more nauseous lately, and I also think I have a slight fever. I was thinking that maybe I could be pregnant. He blandly said, Congratulations, little lady. You're pregnant. Violet, who paused at the words, asked carefully, Is that really? Yes, it is, he replied. At that moment, there was a bright light on Violet's face. She struggled to get up with a heavy body. She said, "Doctor, my body has been feeling better ever since you came. Thank you so much." Even though the expression of emotions was not strong, joy was smeared in her gestures and voice. Beryl was shaken again by the consistent warm greeting of the little lady. He replied, "I'm glad I could be of help. Keep it a secret from others for a while. My husband doesn't want children, so I'll have to tell him myself." He said, "I understand, madam." She thought, Winter didn't tell her why he didn't want children, so she couldn't know why. She was afraid of her husband's reaction, but at the same time, she was full of happiness. She continued, "I'll have to talk with my husband. I'll reward you for this the next time we meet." He replied, "All right, madam. I'll be heading out now." He hurriedly excused himself and ran away, soothing himself that nothing big would happen to him. A white lie like this couldn't possibly cause too much trouble, right? Violet went to see her husband. "Winter, are you busy? I have something I'd like to discuss with you." He replied, "I was only looking over the brewery case. The deal might fall through with the commotion that happened." He then paused and said, "Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, the monk was saved thanks to you." She replied, "And so?" He continued and said, "Since they're nobles who regard etiquette so highly, I assume they'll pay us a visit soon to thank us. What if you bring up the wine deal then?" She frowned at Winter's words, and replied, "I wasn't expecting anything in return though." He continued, "We can switch bodies if you're uncomfortable doing it. I'll talk about it with them instead." She replied, "You're so cold-hearted, Winter. How could you use an incident like that against them?" He smirks and said, "You call that cold-hearted? You'd be surprised to hear of the things I've done." She said, "I believe that you wouldn't have anything bad." He replied, "You thought I could have all this wealth without doing anything bad? How naive of you. You don't know anything about me. No wonder you brought up the divorce." He asked, "So, what is it that you wanted to discuss?" He replied, "I wanted to ask you, I have a question. About the child, are you saying that you don't want to have a baby with me, or do you just hate it?" "I just hate it," he said. "I really want children a lot, so, just, is not a solution to compromise," she replied. Looking at his wife's desperate expression, it seemed that just saying no would not solve it. He continued, "I don't have time to pay attention to my child." She replied, "I'll give birth and raise it on my own. Your child will be growing up without even knowing about it," Violet said imploringly. He thought, of course, she will resign if he shrugs off and speaks of the title. After observing her for some time, Winter has recently learnt that his wife has a strong sense of responsibility. Although she did not hear from Ash about the dissolution of the royal family, she was willing to take responsibility for her brother's actions. But today, he couldn't just break her heart, especially when he just met with the man who used to be engaged to her. He thought he just had to hand it over now. He continued, "It could happen somehow, if the contraception doesn't work." "What do we do then?" she asked. He replied, "You should give birth." Violet's eyes widened like a child, wondering what she was so happy about trying to avoid the situation. "Thank you," she said. Violet was satisfied with his answer. Then, she held his hand tightly, as if she had learned from him, because she wanted to express her joy so that Winter knew it. Then Winter shook off his hand and get up and said, "Aren't you hungry? Why don't we have a meal? We didn't get to eat anything at the party." She replied, "That's true, but it's late and I don't want to wake up the maids." He continued, "I can whip something up. It's no big deal." She asked, "Do you know how to cook?" He replied, "I did work at a restaurant until I was 12. Now follow me." He thought, "This a little bit. After she does what she wants, after buying her what she wants to have, and letting her do everything she wants to do, after she finds something she would like more than having a child. After that." He thought it wouldn't be too late to say that he couldn't have children. Winter, who had been pondering for a long time, said in a shaky voice. Winter felt like a sinner abandoned in the desert after seeing her short, lucid joy. but soon going to crush her enthusiasm down with nonchalance. He managed to ease his anxiety by telling himself that there was nothing to worry about because there was no way he will have children anyway. Now our manhwa ends here, guys. I'm glad that Winter didn't bring up the title incident. He has no idea how guilty Violet felt about that whole ordeal, even though she had no control over it. Plus, if he had brought it up, he would have confirmed her suspicion that he hates her for not being able to give him the title he wants. That stupid doctor. That's not a white lie. That's a hurtful lie. Did you not think the Duke and Duchess's request was suspicious? Or did he just turn a blind eye to it because it benefits him? Well friends, please subscribe my new channel, as you know my channel condition. Now I have to start from scratch. Please subscribe and like and comment if you want new part. Till then, bye.